Chapter 50-15. Sigh. Along with the sigh, the battle for the Emperor Beast came to an end. However, the Emperor Beast had not fallen into Yi Xian's control yet. At least, he had not refined the core crystal. All of this had to wait until he had refined D'Air's electronic consciousness before he could be at ease. No, however, there was still an electronic consciousness in his body that had not been refined and was not weaker than his own. Under such circumstances, if he was distracted to refine the core crystal, the consequences would be unimaginable if something unexpected happened. Matter in reality, although everything had been settled, Yi Xian didn't relax because of this. This was because he still needed a certain amount of time, but the great desolate heavenly Tao's eyes could descend at any time. Although De had been busy for so long, the heavenly Tao's eye had not appeared. However, according to Yi Xian's calculations, De had made such a big commotion and had been going on for 2 days. It was impossible that the primeval heaven's eye had not sensed it. The reason why it hadn't appeared all this time was probably because it was tied down by something extremely important, so it had no time to leave at all. However, now that De, who had been causing a huge commotion, had been devoured, the shocking commotion that had been going on for 2 days in the void of the Eldritch World fragment had stopped. The primeval heavens eye could naturally sense that something must have happened here, therefore, it would definitely settle the matter at hand as soon as possible, or put it aside temporarily, and rush over to see what had happened. In other words, Yi Xian had been racing against time with D'Air before. Now, he was racing against time with the primeval heaven's eye. He had to refine D'Air's electronic consciousness and the core crystal of the Emperor Beast before the primeval heavens eye rushed over. Of course, even if he did not refine them, the primeval heavens eye had already descended. To Yi Xian, there was no other possibility for the Emperor Beast. The raging ape was still guarding the autarch beast's body. Even if the electronic clone had not completed all of this, the raging ape would have unleashed the Shinong Cauldron once the primeval heavens eye arrived ahead of time, keeping the mechanical body of the autarch beast within. If that was the case, Yi Xian would be in a very difficult situation when facing the primeval heavens eye. Although Yi Xian had the heaven-falling bow, it could only be used as a deterrent. He couldn't activate it until the very last moment. Otherwise, once it was activated, Yi Xian would be weakened and would no longer have the strength to continue the battle. Against an existence like the primeval heaven's eye, the best combination was an expert who had stepped into the true heavenly Tao realm, as well as Yi Xian who had the heaven-falling bow with the heaven-falling bow. They could take action at any time to battle the primeval heaven's eye. It didn't matter if they weren't its match, but they had to at least have the ability to engage in a head-on battle. Even if they were suppressed, as long as they could withstand the primeval heaven's eye, it would be fine as long as they weren't instantly killed by it. While Yi Xian held the heaven-falling bow and watched from the side like a tiger watching its prey, forming a deterrent, against such a combination, even the primeval heavens eye would probably be extremely wary. If the autarch beast was completely refined, such a combination would instantly form. When that happened, the autarch beast would face the primeval heavens eye head-on and restrain it, while Yi Xian would act as a deterrent by the side. It would definitely be able to force the other party to submit. Until it was absolutely impossible for the autarch beast to have the advantage of freely manipulating Yi Xian. Therefore, whether or not the autarch beast could be completely refined before the primeval heavens eye arrived and controlled in his hands was extremely important to Yi Xian. All of this seemed to take a long time to describe, but in reality, it flashed through his mind in an instant. Without hesitation, he rushed out of the core crystal of the autarch beast at the first moment. He no longer used the perfect oscillation spiritual power secret technique to conceal his figure and aura, because it was completely unnecessary. First Jia fell silent. Yi Xian used all his strength to refine D'Air's electronic consciousness that he had just devoured. This time, perhaps because he had already devoured De earlier, his own electronic consciousness was stronger and much stronger, so the speed at which he refined D'Air's electronic consciousness was obviously faster than before. Only in just half an incense stick's worth of time, everything was over. Previously, after De's electronic consciousness was refined, Yi Xian's electronic consciousness was a grayish-gold ball of light. But now, as D'Air's electronic consciousness was completely refined, this grayish-gold ball of light had turned pure gold and emitted an extremely sacred aura. Now, just Yi Xian's electronic doppelganger, which was this electronic consciousness that existed in the form of a ball of light, was already infinitely close to the true heavenly Tao realm. After all, before he had devoured Desolate's supremacy, who was already at the peak of the great perfection of the 9th rank, he had then successively devoured De and De, who were not weaker than him. De had even once taken control of the heavenly Tao lightning tribulation and used it as a body to cross the heavenly Tao lightning tribulation and enter the true heavenly Tao realm. But he did not let his guard down because of the joy in his heart. Although De's electronic consciousness had been refined, there was still one last step to complete in order to completely control the autarch beast. That was the core crystal of the autarch beast. First, once this step was completed, even if the true body of primeval heavens I descended, Yi Xian would have the confidence to face it head-on and contend with it, the final step. Everything will be over soon, phew. Following the soft murmurs that sounded like sleep talk, the golden ball of light that represented Yi Xian's electronic consciousness instantly shot out. In the blink of an eye, it had entered the core crystal of the autarch beast and began the complete refinement. Previously, Yi Xian had used an incense stick of time to refine De's electronic consciousness. At that time, although De, who had entered the core crystal of the Emperor Beast, had yet to complete the refinement of the core crystal, he had already completed more than half of the process. Also, in other words, if not for Yi Xian's later interference, De would have needed 30 minutes to completely refine the core crystal of the autarch beast and completely control the autarch beast's heavenly Tao realm mechanical treasure body. But now, Yi Xian's electronic consciousness had successively devoured De and De. He was much stronger than De back then. Therefore, according to his calculations, Yi Xian would need less than 30 minutes to completely refine the core crystal of the autarch beast. It was impossible for him to exceed that time. Very quickly, half an hour passed in the blink of an eye, outside, in the upper realm, in the void of the universe. Today, De and De's electronic consciousnesses had been successively devoured and completely refined. And Yi Xian, who had completed all this, had entered the core crystal of the autarch beast to begin the refinement. Half an hour had passed. Then, after a while, the core crystal of the autarch beast would be completely refined. But it was also at this moment that a shocking upheaval suddenly descended. Boom! Rumble, without any warning. The entire void of the universe suddenly trembled violently. Such a situation was unprecedented. Even Yi Xian had not encountered it before. It was as if the real apocalypse had descended. Brain as this thought flashed through his mind, Bao Yuan, who was sitting cross-legged on the autarch beast's head, suddenly opened his eyes. A cold light flashed in his eyes as he muttered softly, "The primordial apocalypse has finally, fully descended." Chapter 50:16. Boom! Rumble. The next moment, the entire void of the universe suddenly trembled violently. The scene was shocking, as if the real apocalypse had arrived. Bao Yuan, who was sitting cross-legged on top of the Emperor Beast's head, suddenly opened his eyes. There was a flash of understanding in the depths of his eyes. He muttered softly, "The end of the untainted land has finally, fully arrived." At this moment, Yi Xian finally understood why the primeval heavens I had not appeared even after De had spent so much effort in the void of this fragment of the untainted land for so long and had caused such a big disturbance. It was indeed too busy to leave because it had been tied down by more important matters. At that time, the primeval heavens I should have been carrying out some kind of arrangement to promote the final stage of the end of the untainted land. However, perhaps it felt that there was no need to stop first, so it came here to take a look because the final stage of the process was about to be completed very soon. For example, this was the case now. As the final stage of the process was completed and the end of the untainted land was about to arrive, the primeval heavens I, as the doppelganger of the will of the heavenly way, would soon arrive here and would not leave easily. At this moment, this was no small matter. As the end of the untainted land descended, all the fragments of the void that had been completely shattered during the battle in the untainted land would gather and connect with the void of the main plane of the untainted land where Yi Xian was now. It was not the kind of connection that was connected by wormholes or void passageways. Instead, it was a complete integration. There would not be any distinction between them, and there would not even be any separation. It was just like how Yi Xian could directly go to the forbidden land of Rising Sun or the Human Federation from the star area where he was now. There would be no obstruction. In other words, the countless fragments of the void of various sizes that had been shattered back then would completely integrate, just like a broken mirror being reunited. It was precisely because of this that the void of the main plane of the untainted land, which was like the main mirror, would tremble so violently that it had never happened before. Not only was Yi Xian shocked by this scene, but the blood-devouring lion and the two old monsters from the Human Federation, who were tens of billions of miles away in the void, were so frightened that they trembled violently. They had also never seen such a scene before, and they also realized what was about to happen. As for the experts of the small and medium-sized forces and races in the countless inhabited stars in this star field, they had fled in all directions in the void. They had either flown in various warships, battleships, or directly traversed the void with their physical bodies. However, at this moment, as the entire boundless void and the entire sky and earth trembled violently in all directions, they were suddenly at a loss. A look of utter despair appeared on his face as he stopped in midair. Even if they didn't stop, there was nothing they could do. Faced with the violent trembling of the entire sky and earth, they simply didn't know where the path of survival was. They simply didn't know where they should flee. Boom! Rumble! Right at this moment, an earth-shattering rumble suddenly rang out from the void to the right. Looking over, a massive rift suddenly opened up in the void hundreds of billions of kilometers away. Inside the crack, there seemed to be a world that was squeezing in. At first, nothing could be seen, but very soon, when the crack disappeared, the world in that direction suddenly became wider, and even the aura that spread out was different from before. This strange star field appeared, extending from hundreds of billions of kilometers away into the distance. There was no end to it even when the power of divine sense could detect it. Yi Xian recognized the void that had fused with him with a single glance. This was the mysterious void where he and the headless infant corpse had entered after the netherworld furnace and finally rescued the void giant turtle. There were a large number of ancient stars in this mysterious void, as well as some rifts of different sizes. Now, these stars and rifts still existed, but the ancient creatures of the untainted land who were hibernating and healing their wounds were nowhere to be seen. Even some of the places where they had fallen and only their corpses were left are now empty. Rumble, boom. Without waiting for Yi Xian to fall into deep thought and figure out the whereabouts of the ancient creatures, a similar rumbling sound suddenly came from other directions, causing a cold light to flash in his eyes as he subconsciously turned around to look. This time, it was obvious that there was more than one area where the rumbling sounds came from. Moreover, there were some that were far away and some that were near. Even with Yi Xian's powerful half-step heavenly Tao divine sense, he was unable to detect the furthest location. After all, he wasn't a true heavenly Tao realm expert. To allow his divine sense to cover every nook and cranny of a world was a true heavenly Tao realm expert's means. No. Yes, from the direction, he could roughly deduce. In the direction of the Star Alliance, the second universe's plane should have fused in. In the direction of the Myriad Races Alliance, the first universe's plane should have fused in. It was the same for the Human Federation. The third universe's plane should have fused in as well. These three places had already formed a corner of the plane orbit with the current three main planes of the starry skies. Therefore, now that the Eldritch era had descended, the current three main planes of the starry skies had merged with the void of the main plane of the Eldritch era from the plane orbit of the starry skies. Except for this, among them, Yi Xian saw the cage star domain, the root of all evil star domain, and some fragments of the void he had passed by before entering the untainted land's main plane's void. Clang! In the initial battle of the untainted land, the entire untainted land had been severely damaged, collapsing into countless fragments of various sizes. But now, he dared not say that all the fragments had returned, because it was very likely that some of them had fallen into the endless void turbulence. But, according to Yi Xian's inference, the primeval heavens I had found it. Furthermore, it had cast a mystic technique with astounding means. Now, it was fully pulling in the void fragments of various sizes. At least 80% of them had fused, rumble, rip, just as he was in a daze, sitting on top of the arch-beast's head and watching this grand scene that was rarely seen in all of eternity. a shocking explosion sounded from the void hundreds of billions of kilometers away. First, a bolt of lightning tore open a huge fissure in the void's walls. From the fissure, a gigantic eyeball the size of a star emerged. It was none other than the primeval heaven's eye. The moment it appeared, its gaze swept towards the arch-beast and Yi Xian, locking onto their auras. Next, and then, an extremely deep and emotionless murmur sounded from the void. A puny ant dares to scheme against a heavenly Tao realm existence. Have you asked me? In my world, I rule. Chapter 50-17. In the Empyrean Beast's Sea of Consciousness. 190% of the incense stick's time had passed. Yi Xian's electronic avatar remained in the core crystal that resembled a 1,000-foot-tall mountain in the middle of the Empyrean Beast's Sea of Consciousness. Yes. He was completely unaware of what was happening in the outside world. Even if he knew, he would not have any reaction. This was because he was fully focused on refining the Empyrean Beast's core crystal. He had no time to spare. Rumble, outside, the void of the primordial desolate world fragment was trembling violently. It was as though the real apocalypse had arrived. Although the Empyrean Beast's body was massive, it was still in the void. It was naturally unable to remain unaffected. Following. As the void trembled, the Empyrean Beast's massive body trembled as well. It was the same in its sea of consciousness. Yi Xian sensed the severity of the situation, but he did not dare consider anything else. What was most important was to completely refine the Empyrean Beast's core crystal as quickly as possible. Everything else could be compromised for this. Time passed and soon, about 30 seconds passed. Buzz. At that moment, the core crystal in the middle of the Empyrean Beast's Sea of Consciousness suddenly emitted endless golden light. Furthermore, it emitted a deep and continuous buzzing sound. Golden the light spread out, enveloping the vast Empyrean Beast's Sea of Consciousness. At that moment, the silent Empyrean Beast's Sea of Consciousness seemed to come alive. A golden sea appeared out of nowhere, drowning the core crystal. It was no longer visible, leaving behind endless waves that roared incessantly. Whoosh, a gigantic wave surged over, and when it reached the highest point of the Sea of Consciousness, it suddenly paused. Yi Xian's figure walked out of it. He was dressed in golden robes and looked extraordinarily dignified. The cultivation aura that emanated from his body was clearly that of a true heavenly Tao realm. I've finally refined it. As he muttered, Yi Xian's electronic avatar stood proudly atop the gigantic wave in the Sea of Consciousness. A glint flashed in his eyes. From this moment forth, the Empyrean Beast is me. I am the Empyrean Beast, and I am also, at the heavenly Tao realm. Outside, in the upper realm, in the universe's void. Hung after the desolate heaven Tao's azure, I rushed out of the void rift hundreds of billions of miles away. It did not immediately attack Yi Xian. He seemed to have to split his attention to maintain the void fragments of the primordial world that were now fully fusing. This was exactly what Yi Xian wanted to see. Since his opponent had not made a move, he had been sitting on top of the Emperor Beast's head the whole time. His heart was finally at ease. That was because he knew that time was almost up. The electronic doppelganger would be able to refine the core crystal very soon, perhaps in the very next second, in less than 20 breaths of time. The violent tremors in this vast void eased, and the loud roars coming from all directions gradually stopped. Although Xian hadn't left the area, he was still the strongest expert beneath the heavenly Tao realm. Just the extension of his perception was enough to envelop half the world. Now, this world was different from before. Many strange star areas had appeared, and it was even more vast. This was the sign that the other large and small fragments of the untainted world had merged into this world. It wasn't that there was no life in these star areas. Some of the newly fused untainted world fragments had extremely rich life auras. Of course, these life auras varied in strength. In some of the newly fused untainted world fragments, there were very few life auras that could be sensed, giving off a lonely and desolate feeling. However, these auras were all extremely powerful without exception. There was no lack of mighty figures from the primordial era, and there were quite a few of them. There were even primordial supremes. If there were no surprises, the owners of these auras were most likely ancient primordial beings that had participated in the unprecedented battle of the primordial world countless years ago. Of course, they could not be from the Headless Infant Corpses faction. They were likely from the Primeval Heaven's Eyes faction. Now, with the primordial world that had completely collapsed and been destroyed countless years ago fusing once again and descending, the countless ancient beings that belonged to the Primeval Heaven's Eyes faction had also returned. They had returned to the primordial world that was like a mirror that had been broken. They would once again gather under the Primeval Heaven's Eyes command and fight for it. However, this time, it wasn't just to annihilate the Headless Infant Corpses faction. The Primeval Heaven's Eyes plan was definitely bigger. It had its eyes on the next primordial world that was about to fully open. This could be seen from the fact that it had colluded with Xing Bo and paid a huge price to send Xing Bo to the Milky Way star field where the mother planet was. At the same time, Yi Xian was also involved. Although he had nothing to do with the Great Desolate War from countless years ago, he couldn't remain indifferent in the face of the new era of primordial chaos that was about to begin. He could ignore the battle between the Headless Infant Corpses faction and the Primeval Heaven's Eyes faction. However, he had to fight for the supreme fate of the upcoming primordial world era with all his might. I am the master of my world. At this time, when the rumbling of thunder in all directions had completely stopped, this vast and boundless primordial world that had just finished fusing fell into complete silence. In the void hundreds of billions of miles away in front of them, the green eyes of the primordial heaven's path were incomparably deep, and his emotionless voice was heard once again. This time, it clearly revealed a wisp of incomparably coldness. Ant, leave the Emperor Beast and commit suicide. Roar. At this moment, the ferocious ape sitting cross-legged on top of the Emperor Beast's head suddenly raised its head and roared. Then, its body, which was originally only about 3 meters tall, expanded rapidly like a balloon. In the blink of an eye, it had already reached a size of 60 million miles, like a giant star. Its speed was too fast. At this moment, Yi Xian directly activated the bloodline ability of the 9 devil ape transformation in his body. As the roar came out, the power in his body also instantly surged. His aura was like the roaring of a raging river. His limbs and bones surged with boundless ferocity, and there was even a terrifying energy of vital energy and blood that was majestic to the point of being shocking gushing out from his body. Moreover, this incomparably huge body continued to transform. In just half a breath's time, the violent ape of stars had 3 heads and 6 arms. The true body of the devil ape appeared. The body of flesh, the body of bones, and the body of black fog merged into one body. Buzz, the eyes of the body of bones of the 3 true bodies of the devil apes suddenly burst out with an incomparably blazing purple gold light, and a strange aura like a raging river suddenly burst out and spread out. In the next moment, the body of bones raised its left arm. The originally empty left palm suddenly shone with a golden light, and a golden bow in the form of energy appeared in its left hand. Although the body of flesh and blood and the body of black fog did not move, a cold light flashed in their eyes. Obviously, they each had their own methods, but they had not used them yet. At the same time, Yi Xian's incomparably cold voice came from the mouth of the violent ape. Primeval Heaven's Eye, so what? Do you dare fight? Chapter 50:18. So what if you are the Primeval Heaven's Eye? Do you dare to fight me? As the true body of the devil ape appeared, the extremely cold voice of the Yi Xian came out of the mouth of the violent ape. At the same time, the eyes of the skeleton of the devil ape's 3 true bodies suddenly burst out with a blazing purple gold light. This mysterious aura was like a raging river, spreading out in all directions. In the next instant, the skeleton raised its left arm. The empty palm of its left hand suddenly shone with golden light, and a golden bow in the form of energy appeared in its left hand. The shape of the bow was simple and ferocious. The middle part of the palm was a strange beast with 2 heads. The 2 heads were facing up and down, and in the mouths of the ferocious beast were the legs of 2 humanoid creatures. All of them opened their mouths wide in anger, as if they were roaring. A bowstring that was obviously made of countless fine golden threads twisted together was connected to the 2 wide mouths of these 2 humanoid creatures at both ends. Ha! It was the most powerful divine ability of the desolate ancient Yiksha, the heaven-falling bow. Known many years ago, during the primeval war, the primeval Yiksha, who was as powerful as the void tortoise and the golden divine dragon, had shot a huge and irreparable hole in the primeval world with this supreme divine power. The power of that arrow was so powerful that even the heavenly eye, which represented the will of the heavenly way of the desolate ancient world, was almost shot down by that arrow. For example, today, after countless years of recovery and hibernation, the primeval heaven's eye had not only recovered its cultivation of the 8th stage of the heavenly way, but it might even have surpassed the cultivation level when it exploded in the battle of the desolate ancient world. For example, after countless years of arrangement, it had finally merged the fragments of the desolate ancient world that had been shattered by the battle of the desolate ancient world, allowing the desolate ancient world to fully descend. However, even he had never expected that at this moment, the moment when the desolate ancient world fully descended, he would actually see the heaven-falling bow again, which he was afraid of. Because during the battle of the desolate ancient Yiksha countless years ago, the desolate ancient Yiksha was only a peak desolate supremacy at the 9th stage. But now, Yi Xian's combat strength was close to the true heavenly Tao realm. If he were to shoot this arrow now, the threat to the heavenly Tao's eye would not be weaker than back then. It was also because of Yi Xian's confidence that the heavenly Tao's eye was afraid. "It's you." As Yi Xian's true devil ape form, the heavenly Tao's eye instantly recognized Yi Xian recognized him. In the void hundreds of billions of kilometers away, the heavenly Tao's heavenly eye narrowed, its pupils constricted, and a shocking murderous auras, its anger. He was angry. Just by being angry, the entire untainted land trembled slightly. Countless creatures all knelt on the ground and shivered. It was originally the incarnation of the will of the heavenly way of the primordial world. Previously, because of the collapse of the primordial world, its control over the heavenly way was not very obvious. Now, with the reappearance of the desolate ancient world and its full descent, the heavenly Tao's eye's control of the world finally increased greatly. Although as the desolate ancient world had just fused, it had yet to fully stabilize. Therefore, its control had yet to reach its peak. But it wasn't a problem for him to cause the boundless world to tremble in a fit of rage. At that moment, the heavenly Tao's eye was indeed angry. No. A long time ago, Yi Xian had entered the primordial chaos void and activated the 9 devil ape transformations bloodline divine power, allowing his cultivation level to cross the heavenly Tao realm and reach the 3rd stage. Back then, it attracted the attention of the primeval heaven's eye. However, it was in existence at the 8th stage of the heavenly Tao realm. It was just one stage short of reaching the peak of the heavenly Tao realm. From its point of view, Yi Xian, who had suddenly appeared with the devil ape bloodline and cultivation level at the 3rd stage of the heavenly Tao realm, was clearly a potential threat. Therefore, it wanted to eliminate him. Danger at that critical moment, Yi Xian, who knew that he was no match for the primeval heaven's eye, conjured the heavenly meteorite bow, exposing the secret of him controlling this supreme divine power. However, the heavenly Tao's eye did not care and continued preparing to attack. At that critical moment, the headless infant corpse awoke. The void gigantic tortoise descended and fought the heavenly Tao's eye. Finally, the headless infant corpse used its and the void gigantic tortoise's powers to successfully enter the Milky Way stellar domain where the mother planet was located. That battle was a great humiliation to the heavenly Tao's eye. As the embodiment of the primordial chaos world's will, it had actually been schemed against by its archenemy. It had personally sent the headless infant corpse into the Milky Way stellar domain, adding a variable to the situation there. It was unforgivable. Unfortunately, ever since then, it had lost track of the devil ape and could not find it anywhere. It never expected to encounter it here today. Even more so, it never expected that the target it was searching for had always been in the primordial chaos world's void. At that moment, after recognizing Yi Xian, the heavenly Tao's eye instantly understood everything. It realized that Yi Xian had only relied on some mystic technique to forcefully raise his cultivation level in the primordial chaos void. While, here, due to the suppression of the heavenly Tao, its mystic technique was ineffective. So, you're not a true 3rd stage heavenly Tao, a mere half-step heavenly Tao ant, so what if you have the heaven-falling bow? Once you shoot it, you'll instantly fall into a weakened state. As for me, I'll only be injured at most. I can easily crush you. This arrow, do you dare to shoot it? This was the truth. If Yi Xian was alone here, he naturally would not dare to shoot this arrow. He would not even dare to use the heaven-falling bow because he knew that the other party was certain that he would not dare to shoot. As such, he would unknowingly fall into a passive state, but now, in addition to his original body, he still had an electronic doppelganger, which was the Emperor Beast. Ka-cha-cha, rumble, roar, as if it was a response, the green eyes of the great desolate heavenly Tao revealed a look of disdain and ridicule. Just as he finished speaking, the Emperor Beast that had been standing motionlessly beneath Yi Xian's body, which was 500 million kilometers long, suddenly moved. The earth-shattering sound of mechanical grinding resounded. Its 4 gigantic mechanical arms, which were like pillars that supported the heavens, twisted with a thunderous roar. Bang! At the same time, the Emperor Beast's eyes that had been closed all this time opened. It raised its head and let out an earth-shattering roar. Although it did not reach the terrifying aura of the primeval heaven's eye when it was enraged, the entire vast and boundless wilderness did indeed tremble slightly with this roar. This was to be expected. This was because the Emperor Beast was also a true heavenly Tao realm existence. Although the cultivation aura emanating from his body was far inferior to the primeval heaven's eye who was at the 8th stage of the heavenly Tao realm, it had reached the 2nd stage of the heavenly Tao realm. This was likely caused by the electronic doppelganger devouring DE and D air. Feeling after the Emperor Beast fully awakened, the powerful aura of the 2nd stage of the heavenly Tao realm emanated from its body. Standing on top of the Emperor Beast's head, the devil ape grinned. The voice of the divine perception sounded again, then, what about now? Chapter 50-19. In the base camp of the Magic Hall, in the forbidden land of the rising sun, after Xian left, the higher-ups of the Magic Hall followed his instructions and began to gather the army. They collected all the resources in the planets with life and carried them on their bodies or sent them into the battleships and battleships. The end of the Eldritch world had descended upon the world. As a large number of Eldritch world fragments squeezed into the void and began to integrate, the countless planets with life in the forbidden land of the rising sun had been emptied. No one stayed in the interior of the planets. Everyone was in the void. The 6 major legions of the Magic Hall had filled up the entire cosmic void of the forbidden land of the rising sun. As far as the eye could see, there were all kinds of battleships, fortresses, battleships, space beasts, and space beasts in the void as far as the eye could see. There was no end to it at all. Yi Xian was a little surprised. No one dared to disobey Xian's orders. With just one sentence from him, the countless planets with life in the forbidden land of the rising sun had been emptied. Countless subordinates had gathered here. However, although the Magic Hall had many subordinates now, they were all very disciplined. The endless military forces spread out in the void were also orderly. They were arranged according to the arrangement of the 6 major legions of the Magic Hall, each occupying a part of the void. In the Ferocious Beast Legion, there were about 100 million galactic beasts with different cultivation bases. They were formed by the galactic beasts that had originally lived in the void of the Eldritch World fragment. This included the Ferocious Beast Legion of the original galactic nomads and the galactic beasts in the forbidden land of the rising sun. At present, Commander Green Ox, Yu Linglong, Long Shao, Gong Jun, Black Wind Tiger, Howling Moon Mastiff, and the others were standing in front of the Legion, quietly waiting for the next order. There were hundreds of billions of survivors in the Legion, and there were tens of billions of battleships of all kinds. The Legion was extremely large and occupied a very large part of the void. This Legion was formed by the survivors of Sang Ji's tribe and the survivors of the forbidden land of the rising sun. Later, they joined the Survivors Alliance. However, they were in harmony. Currently, the commander, the black-robed Desolate Supremacy, the 9 Supremes, as well as Zhao Dong, Qian Nan, Sun Shi, Li Bei, and the rest were also waiting in formation. The nomadic army had the most soldiers, with a total of more than 1 billion. The battleships were all large fortresses with a diameter of 100,000 meters. There were a total of 50 million battleships. There were humans, the second universe, and even some slave races from the first universe. as well as various great beings from the original Wan Luo Federation. This army was actually the army of captives from before, but now that they had passed the final test, they were no longer captives. The entire nomadic army was made up of cultivators from the three main planes of space. The three-clawed serpent dragon, Longshan Tang, and the other members of the council who were originally captives had calm expressions on their faces. This was because the complete relocation of the magic hall was no small matter, and no accidents were allowed to happen. The captive army occupied the most space in the void. The total number of soldiers in this army was more than 20 billion. There were all kinds of battleships and fortresses, as well as small fortresses with a diameter of 50,000 meters. Although they were only made up of captives from the Blood Dragon, Green Rock, and Battle Lion clans, almost half of the people from these three clans were here, which was why the lineup was so huge. Next, the few great beings from the three clans, as well as the Blood Dragon ancestor and Green Rock ancestor, were also waiting in front of the Legion. The 10,000 Evil Legion had the least number of powerful beings, with only about 100 million astral beasts. However, all of them were brave warriors who had experienced bloody battles. Their combat strength was definitely the strongest legion among the 5 great legions of the Magic Hall. Right now, the immemorial porcupine and the immemorial turtle were standing in front of the legion. The former had the combat strength of a desolate venerable under the demonic pig's 9 transformations bloodline, while the latter was already an ancient great being. Of course, the old pig originally belonged to this camp, but right now, he was in front of Yi Xian's cavern star, ready to give the order to move at any time. The last Heavenly River Legion included the Demon Tribe with the Battle Dragon Legion, Yi Xian's original Heavenly River Legion, the Victorious Legion, the Dark Turtle Tribe, and the Blood Mosquito Beast Tribe. Although they seemed like a mixed army, they were the most important to Yi Xian. Right now, the Commander Mosquito Butcher, Naples, the Demon King Mo Wen Tian, the Demon Uncle, the Dark Turtle Tribe's leader Mingjiu, the Mad Mosquito King, Old Man Shenyuan, Old Man Duanmu, Abbess Bodhi, and other high-ranking members of small forces and families all entered the battleships. They felt the violent tremors in the void outside the battleships, and their expressions were extremely solemn. The old pig was the chief commander of the Magic Hall migration personally appointed by Yi Xian before he left. Right now, he was outside the atmosphere of Yi Xian's cavern star. Furthermore, right after this drastic change in the void, he received a message from Yi Xian to start the migration of the Magic Hall. After a short while, the tremors in the void finally stopped completely. In the void, all the powerful beings of the 6 great legions gathered their gazes on the old pig. Rumble, whoosh, almost at the same time, a low rumble of thunder came from Yi Xian's cavern star. The black magic hall, which looked like a small star, flew out from the interior of the star. The figures of the purplish warbler, Duanmu Xiaocha, and Zhao Qianru could not be seen. They should have been in seclusion, but now, the 7 supreme beauties of the primordial age were standing at the peak of the Black Palace. Whoosh! As the demon palace soared into the sky and rushed out of the star, a ray of light shot out from another star in the distance. It directly landed behind the Black Palace and stood there steadily. It was the demon palace's inheritance tablet that Yi Xian had left behind. This giant tablet contained the mysteries of the 9 transformations technique and the heaven-falling bow. Naturally, it could not be left here. It was taken away and placed in the Magic Hall's new base in the primordial age for all the powerful beings of the Magic Hall to study day and night. The star vortex that entered the primordial age was in a remote corner of the forbidden land of the rising sun. It was concealed by Yi Xian with a secret technique. Even the old pig did not know where it was. But, before leaving, Yi Xian left its coordinates in the Black Palace. Once the Magic Hall appeared in the sky, it would be activated immediately and the Black Palace, which was as large as a small star, would go straight ahead. In the next moment, as the corpse ancestor Hanba of the 7 beauties activated the Magic Hall, a low buzzing sound came from within the Black Palace. The entire huge palace was like a special star fortress. It suddenly moved and headed towards the depths of the forbidden land of the rising sun. Everyone, listen up. The great migration of the Magic Hall begins. A woo! In the next moment, the old pig's divine sense voice came out. He raised his head and let out a shocking roar. Then, his body swayed and followed closely behind. Roar. Screech. Rumble. Almost at the same time, the kinetic energy cabins of countless battleships, fortresses in the void opened at the same time. Countless battleships emitted dazzling light, and countless ferocious beasts roared and roared, shaking this part of the world slightly. The 6 legions were fully activated. Chapter 50-20. In the universe's void, where the arch-beast previously wreaked havoc. Kacha. Rumble, roar, just as the desolate heaven Dao's azure eye finished speaking, the arch-beast, Pang Da's terrifying 250 million kilometer body, suddenly moved. At this moment, the earth-shattering sound of grinding machinery rang out. The autarch beast, which had been motionless all this time, began to move its 4 giant mechanical arms that were like pillars supporting the sky, creating a thunderous roar. First, its tightly shut eyes opened at that moment as it raised its head and let out an earth-shattering roar. Its aura was so intense that a single roar was enough to cause the vast desolate heaven and earth to tremble slightly. At that moment, the powerful aura emanating from the archbeast's body had reached the 2nd stage of the heavenly Dao realm. This was because Yi Xian's electronic avatar had devoured the powerful electronic consciousnesses of De and De, allowing it to approach the true heavenly Dao realm. First, the electronic consciousnesses that were infinitely close to the heavenly Dao realm, and the archbeast's powerful mechanical treasured body that had already entered the heavenly Dao realm. When the two were combined, it was only natural for it to reach the 2nd stage of the heavenly Dao realm. With the archbeast fully awakening, Yi Xian's heart, which was in his throat, finally calmed down completely. Standing still, standing on top of the archbeast's head, the demonic ape looked at the distant heavenly Dao's azure eye and grinned. Its voice sounded coldly. Then, what about now? A similar voice sounded from the beast's mouth. Then, what about now? This was clearly Yi Xian's voice as well. It was extremely clear and anyone could tell. At that moment, the void fell into silence. The archbeast and the demonic ape were one on top and one below. The latter was 250 million kilometers in size. Its eyes were sharp as they locked onto the primeval heaven's eye in the distant void. Its aura was intense and it looked like it could charge out at any moment. On top of the autarch beast's head, the 3-headed and 6-armed demonic ape stood there quietly. The 3 skeletons of the demonic ape raised their left arms, revealing the fallen sky bow. Their right hands were on the bowstring, ready to pull the bowstring and shoot an arrow at any time. Far away, the bloodthirsty battle lion and the 2 old monsters from the Human Federation gasped in shock. Their eyes widened as they thought they were hallucinating. Wasn't the autarch beast stupid? No, was it because of the head of the demon palace, Yi Xian, that one hit from the head of the demon palace? Why did he suddenly wake up? Furthermore, his cultivation had made a breakthrough, reaching the 2nd stage of the heavenly Dao realm. The voice that came out of his mouth was the voice of the Lord of the Fiend Emperor, Yi Xian. As these thoughts flashed through their minds, the 3 old fellows felt a rumbling sound in their minds. After a few moments of confusion, they all gasped and cried out involuntarily, "I understand now." All of this was done by the head of the magic hall, Yi Xian. He originally had an electronic avatar. Like De and De, he could also enter the autarch beast's body. If I'm not mistaken, the head of the magic hall, Yi Xian, should have sent his electronic avatar into the autarch beast's body. At the same time, his true body interfered from the outside, allowing the electronic avatar to devour De and De's electronic consciousnesses, strengthening himself and refining the autarch beast. SSS. What a shocking move. De and De fought for so long, but in the end, he benefited. Now, the Magic Hall has a 2nd stage Heavenly Dao Realm Autarch Beast. In addition, Yi Xian's true body has the Fallen Sky Bow, a divine power that even Heavenly Dao Realm existences fear. Now, the Magic Hall is definitely an invincible existence in this void fragment of the primordial world. No matter which faction it is, they are definitely no match for it. Even if all the ancestors of our Human Federation's 3 ancestral grounds were to awaken from their slumber, they would still be no match for it. In this world, the only existence that can suppress the head of the Magic Hall, Yi Xian, is the primeval heaven's eye. Following these exclamations, the faces of the blood-devouring war lion and the two old freaks from the Human Federation had already turned extremely gloomy. If it was said that they were still resentful and unhappy about Yi Xian's disregard, then everything was different now. Now, the head of the magic hall had a second-stage Heavenly Dao Realm autarch beast that had stepped into the Heavenly Dao Realm. In an instant, the gap between them had widened, and they were no longer able to fight back. As these thoughts flashed through their minds, the three old freaks subconsciously exchanged glances across the endless void. They could all see the sadness and loneliness in each other's eyes. They were also primordial supremes and had once been on equal footing with the head of the magic hall, Yi Xian. They had even fought against each other. However, now, unknowingly, they had been thrown down a level by the head of the magic hall, Yi Xian. They had become existences that were completely incomparable to him. This feeling was really unpleasant and made them sigh. Yi Xian, do you want to fight me to the death? While the blood-devouring war lion and the two old freaks from the Human Federation were sighing inwardly, on the other side of the void, the pupils of the primeval heaven's eye, which was as large as a star, constricted. Its extremely deep voice sounded out, I have to say that your scheme succeeded. You actually managed to devour the electronic consciousnesses of DE and D-Air, finally obtaining the mechanical body of an autarch beast that has stepped into the true Heavenly Dao realm, but even so, you are still no match for me in a battle. This autarch beast is only at the second stage of the Heavenly Dao realm, but I am at the 8th stage of the same realm. What, do you have to fight me? It was the truth. Even if he did not say it, Yi Xian knew very well that he was definitely no match for the primeval heaven's eye. Even if he joined forces with the autarch beast, there was no way he could defeat it. But, he was confident because he knew that if the autarch beast charged forward recklessly, temporarily restraining the primeval heaven's eye, Yi Xian's true body could take advantage of this opportunity to lock onto the autarch beast's body and shoot an arrow. With his current cultivation level and strength, although he could not kill the primeval heaven's eye, who was at the 8th stage, by using the heaven-falling bow at full strength, he could still severely injure it. The autarch beast had finally completed its arrangements, allowing the primeval apocalypse to descend upon the present world. It definitely had more important arrangements to make next. At this time, he could not bear the consequences of suddenly being severely injured. In comparison, letting Yi Xian leave so easily was not an unacceptable outcome. Even if it was unacceptable, the primeval heavens I could only accept it because he had no better choice. At this point, Yi Xian's heart calmed down. A cold glint flashed in the eyes of the demon ape's fleshly body, and the voice of the divine perception was immediately transmitted. Just as you said, even if I join forces with the autarch beast, we are definitely no match for you. But once the battle begins, with the autarch beast restraining me, I can successfully lock onto your aura. Although you won't die with one arrow, you will definitely be severely injured. Can the present you bear such an outcome? Or should I say, are you willing to bear it? Chapter 50-21. Can the present you bear such an outcome? Or should I say, are you willing to bear it? Yi Xian drew the heaven-falling bow with his left arm and pulled the bowstring with his right hand. A cold beam flashed in his eyes as he glared at the primeval heaven's eye hundreds of billions of kilometers away. His cold words had a hint of mockery to them. It was as though he was mocking it. Roar, with his final sentence, the arch-beast let out a deep roar. It pushed its strength to its limits as it waited. It looked like it could teleport over at any moment to engage the Heavenly Dao's eye. Upon seeing this scene, the Heavenly Dao's eye shimmered as it fell silent. It was a supreme existence at the 8th stage of the Heavenly Dao realm. Although it did not fear a second stage the arch-beast, if the arch-beast went all out and disregarded everything, it was completely possible for it to hold it back for a few seconds. In those few seconds, Yi Xian, who was wielding the heaven-falling bow, would be able to lock onto its aura completely. When the time came, the arrow might not kill it, but it was highly likely that it would be heavily injured. Even if it could avoid being heavily injured, it would not be able to avoid being lightly injured. It was weighing the pros and cons, considering if all of this was worth it. Finally, the Heavenly Dao's eye seemed to make a decision. A look of indignation flashed in its gigantic eyes. Immediately following that, an extremely deep voice sounded. Yi Xian, you are not my match. However, I can temporarily release the infant corpse, much less you. With your cultivation level that has yet to enter the heavenly Tao realm, it is not enough for me to pay the price to kill you. Today, what do you intend to do? It was clearly about to relent. It did not wish to be injured because of Yi Xian, so it planned on temporarily releasing him. When the time was right in the future, it would kill him. That was enough. To Yi Xian, as long as he could successfully leave this place today, his goal would be achieved. He had no plans on fighting the heavenly Tao's eye to the death. On the one hand, it was not worth it. Here, he was unable to possess the combat strength of the heavenly Tao realm, but it was different in the primordial chaos void. If, today, all the members of the magic hall should have moved to the primordial chaos void. In this primordial chaos void, Yi Xian no longer had anything to worry about. He could leave calmly. His only goal be to completely evacuate this place. No. But before that, there was one last thing that needed to be done. Thinking of this, Yi Xian subconsciously turned around and looked in the direction of the third universe's plane. At the same time, his divine sense swept out. Next, in the next moment, Yi Xian's body trembled, and an unexpected expression of shock appeared on the violent ape's face. Before leaving this fused great desolate world, the 9 heavenly stars were the only things that Yi Xian still remembered and had to take away. With his current cultivation and strength, he could even take away a single star with a wave of his hand. Xian Bi. Of. Dang. Perhaps the current mother planet was countless years before Yi Xian was born, or it could be countless years after. Therefore, Yi Xian had to go to the mysterious mother planet that was still protected by the nomological powers of the primordial chaos void. But even if it was the 9 heavenly stars, he still couldn't bear to part with them. Since the Great Desolate World, which had been destroyed by the Great Desolate War countless years ago, had already merged back together, the Great Desolate World that should have ended, but had yet to truly end, had already arrived. He could no longer stay in the primordial chaos world because he would always be suppressed. He had to leave. Then, when he left, he had to take the 9 heaven star with him. Although the 9 heaven star was not the mother planet that gave birth to his life, Yi Xian had grown up in the 9 heaven star. That was his second home. What's more, there were too many old friends in the 9 heaven star. This planet was very special. After Yi Xian left the 9 heaven star, he immediately rushed to the heavenly river star to complete the certification of ownership of the 9 heaven star. However, he was still too weak at that time, and the 9 heaven star was located in the depths of an extremely remote star domain. There were no other signs of life there. In order to avoid bringing the powerful forces of the starry sky environment into the 9 heaven star and bringing calamity to the living beings on the planet, he had never returned before he had grown up. However, after Yi Xian had advanced to the immortal realm, he had the strength to protect the 9 heaven star. He had returned to the 9 heaven star once, but to his surprise, he found that this planet's own domain was very special. The atmosphere that enveloped the 9 heaven star seemed normal, no different from other planets. However, in reality, there was a layer of formless energy that was like a membrane in the entire atmosphere. It firmly protected the entire 9 heaven star. Not only was it too difficult for cultivators inside the planet to leave, but they also had to reach the height that Yi Xian had in the past. It was even more difficult for living beings outside the 9 heaven star to enter. At that time, Yi Xian had already advanced to the immortal realm, but he still couldn't force his way through the formless membrane in the 9 heaven star's atmosphere and enter the planet. Just from this point alone, one could see a thing or two. However, although this matter was strange, Yi Xian didn't think too much about it. Instead, he was even more relieved. Because of the formless membrane's existence, the life force within the 9 heaven star was restrained, including the entire planet's aura. Although he couldn't enter at that time, at least he could confirm that all the living beings on the 9 heaven star, including his old friends, were all safe. Originally, Yi Xian wanted to wait until his cultivation had advanced to the level of Marquis Immortal, King, and Emperor before making a trip to the 9 heaven star. He wanted to see if he could forcefully break through the invisible barrier in the atmosphere of the 9 heaven star and enter the star with his current level of cultivation. However, after that, he had always been in the main void of this fragment of the universe. Even when he left, he went to the Hong Meng void and didn't return to the third universe. In addition, he had never stopped working on the various matters at hand, so he didn't have the time at all. This matter was delayed until now, when he had already advanced to the supreme primordial level, but he still hadn't returned to the Nine Heavens star. Only, he had never expected that even though the entire third universe had merged into the untainted land, the ninth heavenly star was nowhere to be found in the remote star field where the ninth heavenly star had once resided. This, 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 this result made his heart sink, but he didn't panic. After a glance, he retracted his gaze in divine sense, frowning and started to deduce. This situation was obviously very unusual. The only explanation was that the Nine Heaven star didn't belong to the third universe. It was from outside. Only in this way would the green eye of the primordial heavenly Tao not affect the nine heavenly stars when it used a secret technique to pull the third universe's plane that had been scattered from the primordial world into the main void of the fragment of the primordial world. Chapter 50-22. As he continued to deduce, Yi Xian gradually had a guess in his heart. 9. The unexpected disappearance of the heavenly star was obviously extremely unusual. The only explanation was that it didn't belong to the third universe in the first place. To the third universe, it was simply foreign. Only if that was the case, the primeval heavens I had used a secret technique to pull the third universe's plane that had been scattered from the collapse of the eldritch world and merged into the main void of the eldritch world fragment. Only then would the nine heavenly stars not be affected and not be brought over at all. If that was the case, then where did the nine heavenly stars come from? Where were they now? All of this was strange. Even with Yi Xian's current cultivation and strength, he didn't have any results when he tried to deduce. He was completely relying on his own guesses. Logically speaking, a star, unless it was forcefully moved by some almighty, such as the current Yi Xian. Otherwise, no matter how intense the star's movement was, it was impossible to move from one universe's void to another universe's void. Of course, it was also possible that it wasn't done by some almighty existence, but by the influence of some kind of law that caused it to descend from another plane to the void of the third universe. For example, this was the case for the mysterious mother planet. It had disappeared due to the power of the laws of the primordial void when the primordial world had completely collapsed during the Great War countless years ago. Even more so, as for the entire Milky Way star field, including the mother planet, it had flown away. If the nine heavenly stars was also in this situation, then its origin was too mysterious. Its background must be extraordinary. Even if it couldn't be compared to the mother planet in the Milky Way star field, it probably wasn't too far off. However, all of this was not important. With Yi Xian's current cultivation and strength, as long as he found the nine heavenly stars, he was 100% sure that he could forcefully break through the invisible barrier in the atmosphere of the nine heavenly stars and enter the interior of the star. If at this point, no matter what the secrets of the nine heavenly stars were, he should be able to find out clearly. At least, he would be able to get a general result. Yes, the third universe's plane had been pulled over by the primeval heaven's eye and integrated into the world of the end of the eldritch world. Now, the nine heavenly stars was like a lonely person that had fallen into the endless turbulence of the void. If he wanted to find it, he was afraid that it would be difficult. But no matter what, he had to give it a try. Of course, even if he was temporarily unable to find it, Yi Xian would not give up. In the future, when his cultivation level entered the true heavenly Tao realm, he would definitely enter the dangerous void turbulence and personally bring back the nine heaven stars. While now, they weren't heading to the forbidden land of Rising Sunday. The entire Magic Hall army had already moved into the small vortex of stars that connected to the primordial chaos void. And that small vortex of stars had already been concealed once more, and it wouldn't be discovered for the time being. This was to prevent Heaven's Eye's Eye from leading an army to chase after it and catch up to the Magic Hall's army from behind. Therefore, if Yi Xian returned to the forbidden land of the rising sun, it would be bad news. It would be equivalent to showing the path to the primeval Heaven's Eye, which would immediately expose the existence of the small vortex of stars. Counter he was about to enter the turbulent void space to try and find the 9 heavenly stars. Hence, the best solution now was to tear open the void space and enter the turbulent void space. He would go to the original location of the third universe to search. At that time, regardless of whether there were any results or not, he would be able to directly use the planar-level interstellar coordinate jump ability to return directly to the vicinity of the Source Nest's headquarters in the primordial chaos void. In other words, he was going to leave. And after leaving, this newly merged world would be unified under the deterrence of Heaven's Eye's eye. None, whether it was the current Human Race Federation, the Alliance of 10,000 Races, the Star Alliance, or other large and small forces, as well as the newly integrated 3 major starry sky main planes, as well as other forces and races in the fragmented void space, they would all be forced to submit to Heaven's Eye. All living beings in this desolate and apocalyptic world would be respected by him. However, Yi Xian didn't care about all of this, and he wasn't interested in paying attention to it at all. With these thoughts flashing through his mind, Yi Xian immediately made his move. With an incomparably clear sound of ripping silk, a huge void crack appeared in the void in front of the Emperor Beast. This void crack led to the original location of the third universe's plain void space. Endless void turbulence seeped out from within, and the aura was cold and terrifying. Even universe supremes would most likely be turned into corpses in an instant if they weren't powerful beings or desolation supremes. Primeval heavens! I was obviously very surprised by Yi Xian's actions. He didn't expect Yi Xian to actually want to leave. Moreover, he was going to directly tear open the void space and enter the endless turbulent void space. Given his and the Emperor Beast's current cultivation base and strength, it was basically not too dangerous to enter such turbulent void streams. Moreover, if they were prepared, the possibility of getting lost in the turbulent void streams did not even exist. They could follow the various traces that they had prepared beforehand and return to the sect. Even so, Heaven's Eye was still very confused. Previously, he had met Yi Xian in the Hongmeng void space, and they had even almost engaged in a great battle. Now that he had met him again, it meant that he had a secret way to enter the Hongmeng void space. In Heaven's Eye's opinion, Yi Xian should have chosen to enter the Hongmeng void space and not the turbulent void space. However, all this had no effect on him. Whether Yi Xian went to the Hongmeng void space or the turbulent void space, as long as he left the Hongmeng void space, it would be enough. Moreover, Heaven's Eye was also very certain that in the future, there would definitely be a chance to meet Yi Xian again. When that time came, it would use all its strength to vent today's anger. Boom! 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 In the void space, there was an earth-shattering sound. The Emperor Beast's incomparably huge body took a step forward and stepped into the void crack in front of it. On top of the Emperor Beast's head was the demonic ape skeleton, which had shrunk to 100,000 feet in size. Its left arm was raised high, and the heaven-falling bow was not put away. Furthermore, its right arm was placed on the bowstring the entire time. This was to guard against the sudden sneak attack of the great desolate heavenly Tao's green eye. Yi Xian didn't trust this old fellow, and he didn't trust him at all. As long as he was still in the void of the great desolate era, he had to be on full alert in case anything unexpected happened. It was actually a terrifying existence at the 8th stage of the heavenly Tao realm. Once he was ambushed by it, the consequences were obvious. Even the present Yi Xian might not be able to withstand it. No, the primeval Heaven's Eye did not seem to have any other plans. It stood in the void hundreds of billions of miles away, its eyes flickering from time to time. Yet, he quietly watched as the devil ape stood on top of the Emperor Beast's head. As the Emperor Beast stepped forward, step by step, it entered the void crack in front of it, gradually moving further and further away. Slowly, it disappeared into the endless turbulence of the void crack, never to be seen again. At this moment, to Yi Xian, everything in the Hongmeng void space was considered to have come to an end. However, to the countless living beings in the Hongmeng void space, everything had just begun. Chapter 50-23. In the end of the chaos void, rumble, the figures of the Emperor Beast and the Demon Ape disappeared in the endless void turbulence and were no longer visible. This incomparably huge void crack was also rapidly mended under the influence of the nomological power of the end of the chaos void. Such as, today, this was no longer the main fragment void of the chaos world, but an almost complete chaos world that seemed to have been reunited. At least 80% of the countless large and small fragments of the void that had collapsed due to the unprecedented battle had been found by the heavenly Tao Green Eye and arranged for countless years. Now, it had used a secret technique to pull them back and fuse them together again. This was equivalent to the reappearance of the chaos world of the past, but it could no longer be compared to the chaos world of the past. No, the chaos world of the past was full of vitality and endless vitality. However, presently, this so-called primeval world that had once again fused together after breaking through had long since entered the end of this primeval era. Moreover, it was bound to be completely annihilated when the next primeval era officially began. It was like a boundless void of turbulence, exiled from here on. All of this no longer had anything to do with Yi Xian. He'd already left the void at the end of the Great Desolate Era, and if there were no other unforeseen events, he wouldn't return. In the future, the battle for the destiny of the next primordial era would also unfold in the primordial era. However, for the countless creatures living in the void of the end of the untainted land, this was just the beginning. When this incomparably huge void crack slowly mended, the blood-devouring lion and the two human race desolate supremacies from the Human Race Federation were still at the end of the void in the distance and had not left. With their own eyes, they witnessed the arrival of the Green Eye of Heavenly Tao, the revival of the autarch beast, and the merging of the other fragments of the primitive world, which quickly repaired the main fragment of the primitive world, and turned it into a primitive world with a completely different aura, which was even more majestic and ancient. Similarly, they had also seen Yi Xian and the Emperor Beast working together to force the primeval Heaven's Eye to leave out of fear. In the end, they could only watch as Yi Xian and the Emperor Beast calmly left. Everything, one after another, was extremely shocking. Even though the three of them were supreme beings of the primordial era, their minds were still buzzing. They were caught off guard and couldn't process what just happened. In this star area, the countless experts of the small and medium-sized forces, no matter how far they had fled, were no exception. They all prostrated themselves in the void, their bodies trembling as if doomsday had arrived. Now, with the large and small pieces of the chaos fragment that had been shattered in that incomparable battle countless years ago, almost all of the void had been pulled over. The chaos world of the past was like a broken mirror being reunited. Under the fusion of countless void fragments, it appeared once again. The missing power of the heavenly Tao of the untainted land in the main fragment of the untainted land had long been made up for to the extreme. It could be said that the degree of control that the Green Eye of the heavenly Tao of the untainted land had now reached that of the untainted land's end of the untainted land, which had just been fused with the Green Eye of the untainted land. Even though it had not reached the level of the untainted land's golden age, it was definitely not far away, wrong. With the large and small pieces of the chaos world fusing together, the chaos world of the end of the chaos world of the chaos world was now infinitely vast, thousands of times larger than before. Even so, as the embodiment of the will of the world of the chaos world, the Eye of the Heavenly Way could still control every inch of the void with great precision. For example, today, it reigns supreme in the chaos world of the end of the chaos world. Even though it was just standing there quietly without deliberately spreading its aura, all living creatures in the endless void of the end of the chaos world of the end of the chaos world could clearly feel its endless pressure. In the void, even the blood-devouring lion, the two desolate elders of the human clan from the Human Clan Federation, were trembling slightly and kneeling down in the void. They didn't even dare to breathe loudly. Their faces were pale and uneasy. While, in other parts of the void, whether it was the Human Race Federation, the Star Alliance, or the Alliance of 10,000 races, all the starry sky experts, regardless of their level of cultivation, trembled and fell to their knees under the terrifying pressure of the heavenly way emanating from the Green Eye of the Heavenly Way. No one was spared from this. I am the Chaos World. All of you are my people. With a flash of light, the Eye of the Heavenly Way's deep voice suddenly rang out. The voice wasn't very loud, but it enveloped the entire vast and endless void of the end of the chaos world of the end of the chaos world. Heavens! Even an existence hiding in the deepest corner of a star's core could hear it clearly. Moreover, the voice sounded as if it was right next to their ears. This. The meaning of this was clearly that the entire endless void was under the control of the eye of the heavenly way. No matter where, everything, big or small, could be seen clearly. The chaos world has reappeared, and I have fully descended. From this moment on, the chaos world is united. Countless living creatures worship me. If there are any objections, they will be obliterated. Whoosh. Whoosh whoosh, halfway through, the eye of the heavenly way shot out 3 rays of green light. They seemed inconspicuous, only the size of a thumb, but they were all filled with an extremely strong energy aura. The 3 rays of green light were extremely fast. When they appeared, they were still in the void hundreds of billions of miles away, but almost in the next moment, they had already arrived in front of them. Before the 3 of them could react, they directly drilled into the glabella of the blood-devouring war lion and the 2 desolate elders from the human clan federation. Rumble, the next moment, as the light rays, which were as small as fireflies, entered the glabella of the 3 of them, an incomparably deep rumbling sound of thunder immediately came from their bodies. Accompanied by this sound of thunder, the cultivation aura of the 3 of them was also rapidly rising. Short in about 3 or 4 breaths, they had directly broken through 2 levels of cultivation. First, previously, the 2 desolate elders from the human clan federation were only at the 7th stage of the supreme primordial realm. But now, after breaking through 2 small levels, they had stepped into the 9th stage of the supreme primordial realm in a few breaths of time, becoming supreme existences at the half-step heavenly Tao realm. Until as for the blood-devouring war lion, under the bloodline divine ability of the berserk lion 9 transformations, its cultivation had also soared from the 5th stage of the desolate elder to the 7th stage of the desolate elder. All of this took a long time to describe, but in fact, it happened in a few breaths of time. In just a few breaths of time, their cultivation had increased by 2 levels. Such a thing was like a dream. The 3 old fellows trembled violently and were stunned on the spot. Their eyes were wide open, and their mouths were slightly agape. It was as if they had just been struck by lightning. This is my power. Go. How could my desolate world only have 3 primordial sovereigns? At this moment, the voice of the eye of the heavenly way sounded again. Pass down my order. Awaken all the mighty figures and desolate elders of all races and factions. Come and meet me. M. Chapter 50-24. The Primordial Void. This was a remote area after entering the forbidden land of rising sun from the hidden vortex of stars. It was still extremely far from the right bank of the Milky Way. Similarly, it was not close to the Source Nest's headquarters. After entering this place, Old Pig Spirit immediately had a sense of direction. He could vaguely sense the location of the Source Nest's headquarters. After all, he had stayed there for quite some time. Moreover, under the demonic pig's 9 transformations bloodline divine ability state, Old Pig Spirit already possessed the cultivation of a half-step heavenly Tao desolate supremacy. This time, the entire 6 armies of the magic hall had migrated. The vast forbidden land of rising sun was empty, and not a single strand of hair was left behind. Just based on this point, one could imagine how huge the lineup in this remote corner of the primordial void was. As far as the eye could see, the 6 armies quietly spread out in the dark void. The figures of various battleships, and ferocious beasts were endless, and they extended to the end of one's line of sight. At the front of this foreign army that had just entered the primordial void, a black palace quietly stood. Shockingly, it was the symbol of the magic hall. This black palace itself was a primordial treasure that was personally refined by Yi Xian. At this moment, it was in its complete form. It was like a small star in the shape of a palace, floating in the void, and emitting a thick and simple aura. Purplish Warbler, Duan Xiaocha, and Zhao Qianru were still in seclusion, so only Corpse Ancestor, Hitorigami, and the other 3 beautiful cultivators were in charge of the Black Palace. Now, the 7 girls were standing on the platform outside the palace, looking into the dark primordial void in front of them, and their faces revealed contemplative expressions. Oh woo, at this moment, two boar howls suddenly sounded. Old Pig Spirit and Primordial Porcupine rushed over from a huge star fortress. These two fellows had activated the bloodline divine ability of the demonic pig's 9 transformations, so Primordial Porcupine also had the cultivation of a desolate supremacy. Immediately after, figures rushed out from the other star fortresses and battleships around them. These figures were all the higher-ups of the Magic Hall. For example, the black-robed desolate supremacy from the Native Alliance was also following behind these two fellows. All 3 of them had the combat strength of a desolate supremacy. They were standing in the void closest to the Black Magic Hall. Behind the 3 of them were the higher-ups of the Magic Hall who were below the desolate supremacy realm. Among them, the strongest were the mighty figures of the primordial era. Although there were not many of them, there were still quite a few of them. In less than half an incense stick's worth of time, more and more figures rushed out from the void and gathered in the void behind the Black Magic Hall. Without exception, all the higher-ups of the Magic Hall had arrived. Old behind the Pig Spirit and the other 2 were the 9 powerful figures of the remote antiquity from the Blood Dragon clan, the Green Rock clan, and the Battle Lion clan, as well as the 3 powerful figures of the Alliance of Remnants. Behind them were the 6-headed Blood Dragon, Zhao Dong, Qian Nan, Sun Shi, Li Bei, and Elder Sang Ji. Bao including Green Cow, Yu Ling Long, Long Ao, Gong Jun, Howling Moon Mastiff, 3-Clawed Dragon, Long Shan Tang, Blood Dragon Ancestor, Green Rock Ancestor, and the titled Emperors of the Blood Dragon clan, Green Rock Ancestor, and the Battle Lion clan. Finally, there were more than 200 titled emperors in the captive army formed by the captives of the Blood Dragon clan, Green Rock clan, and the Battle Lion clan. Of course, the higher-ups of the 10,000 Evil Legion led by Immemorial Turtle were also gathered here. Among them, the weaker ones were still the commanders of the Heavenly River Legion. For example, Old Geezer Mosquito Butcher, Naples, Devil King Mo Wen Tian, Demon King Imperial Uncle, Dark Turtle Clan Leader Mingjiu, Mad Mosquito Emperor, Old Man Shenyuan, Old Man Duanmu, Abbess Bodhi, and other higher-ups of small sects and clans. In a short period of time, the upper echelons of the 6 great armies all rushed out of their respective flagships. There were a total of over 1,000 figures, and they all gathered in the void behind the Black Palace. At this moment, other than the 7 gorgeous cultivators who had already been to the primordial void, the old pig demon, and the others, the rest of the upper echelons of the Devil Hall were all looking around with curious expressions on their faces as they sized up everything in the void. Unfortunately, even though the powerful figures of the remote antiquity era could extend their divine senses to the extreme, they still couldn't find anything. This void was like an endless darkness. There wasn't even a single abandoned star in the void, let alone a star with life. Compared to the main void of the fragment of the untainted land where they were before, this was simply a wasteland. There were countless powerful figures of the Magic Hall of the 6 legions in the void, but except for the 7 gorgeous cultivators and the Pig Spirit, almost none of them had been to the Hong Meng void before. Although they hadn't been there before, they had at least heard about it. They knew that the Hong Meng void was at a higher level than the untainted land world countless years ago. In fact, legend had it that the untainted land world countless years ago was just a world created by one of the 3,000 chaos demon gods that were born in the Hong Meng void after the start of the Hong Meng era. Only, just based on this point, the Hong Meng void was already high enough in everyone's hearts. Only, yes, they had been looking forward to it for so long, but now that they had really entered the Hong Meng void, all they saw was a dark wasteland. They couldn't even find the existence of a single abandoned star at the end of their divine senses. This situation was completely different from what they had expected. The difference was simply indescribable. If not for the fact that they trusted Yi Xian and the Pig Spirit, they would have suspected that they had come to the wrong place. But, even then, they were still slightly stunned, and they stared blankly as they sized up the surrounding space. Every single one of them had a dumbstruck expression on their faces, and they even suspected that they were hallucinating. What's with your expressions? Don't tell me that you think that I've come to the wrong place? Oh woo, the Pig Spirit looked around at everyone. After being stunned for a moment, he immediately understood why they were behaving like this. He was so angry that he rolled his eyes. He raised his head and roared violently. The voice of his divine sense sounded again. This is only the most remote place in the Hongmeng void. The passage to the rising sun forbidden land is in this location, which is the most ideal. However, although the overall environment of the Hongmeng void is basically the same, and one or two abandoned stars can occasionally be seen very far away in the void, this place is still extraordinary. Have you heard of the nesting stars that give birth to the chaos demon gods? At the beginning of this Hongmeng era, 3,000 chaos demon gods were born in the Hongmeng void. One of them created the untainted land later. Now, this Hongmeng era is about to end, and a new Hongmeng era is coming. Therefore, in this endless Hongmeng void, there are 3,000 nesting stars that give birth to the chaos demon gods at the beginning of the new era. This time, we will go straight to the right bank of the Milky Way, and we will see two of them on the way. At this point, the pig spirit seemed to have suddenly thought of something. He patted his head and immediately corrected himself. Wrong, it's not 3,000. There are only 2,999 of them at most. Because one of them has been hollowed out by the leader, it has become the base camp of our magic hall in this Hongmeng void. Chapter 50-25. Upon hearing this, the expressions of the upper echelons of the magic hall changed drastically. They gasped and exclaimed, "What? Our magic hall's base in the primordial chaos void is actually a source nest star? Isn't this too extravagant?" In the endless years of the primordial chaos epoch, only 3,000 chaos fiend celestials were born in the primordial chaos void. Our magic hall snatched one just like that? That's not right. The source nest star gave birth to a chaos fiend celestial. Such an important place naturally wouldn't allow crooks to mix in with the honest folk. Since that source nest star has become our magic hall's base, then, what happened to the chaos fiend celestial that was born in it? Is there even a need to ask? Of course it was finished off by boss. Hee, just thinking about it makes me excited. Without a word, he finished off a chaos fiend celestial born in the primordial chaos void. See? Finished off? That's a chaos fiend celestial born in the primordial chaos void. Isn't boss too valiant? Everything is possible in the primordial chaos void. Although this saying is a legend, it doesn't seem to be unreasonable from this matter. That's right, everything is possible in the primordial chaos void. As the exclamations and exclamations of the upper echelons of the magic hall sounded, Pig Spirit revealed a smug look. He paused for a moment before sweeping his gaze across everyone. Only then did his expression turn serious. He continued, previously, in the primordial chaos void fragment, boss's cultivation had been suppressed because the primordial chaos heavenly Tao laws didn't allow it. Under the suppression of the heavenly Tao in such an environment, even with boss's monstrous talent, he couldn't forcefully break through to the true heavenly Tao realm. However, in this primordial chaos void, although there is the suppression of the primordial chaos void, the level of the primordial chaos void is far higher than that of the primordial chaos world. Heavenly Tao realm experts are the strongest existences in the primordial chaos world, but here, that's far from the case. Therefore, as long as you have the ability and talent, you can attempt to break through to the heavenly Tao realm at any time here once your cultivation level reaches a certain level. Although the heavenly Tao lightning tribulation will still descend, you will absolutely not encounter the domineering suppression of the primordial chaos laws. Aside from that, don't be fooled by the fact that this void is barren. In fact, there is a great opportunity. At this point, a look of fascination appeared on Pig Spirit's face. He raised his hand and pointed to the void at the end of his line of sight. He continued, "Look here. In the extreme distance in this direction, there is a brilliant galaxy. It is called the Milky Way. There is a mysterious mother planet in the Milky Way. It is said that the untainted land world was born from this mother planet. Countless years ago, that great battle shattered the entire great desolate world. This mysterious mother planet, along with the entire Milky Way, flew away together with it. That is because the primordial chaos laws took action and brought the Milky Way here. Now, the Milky Way is like all the other nests. It is protected by an invisible barrier and cannot be entered. This invisible barrier is condensed from the nether nomological forces of the primordial chaos void. It's so powerful that even a true heavenly Tao realm existence would not be able to forcibly blast it open and enter. It is said that when the new primordial chaos era is about to arrive and the 3,000 chaos demon gods born in the primordial chaos void are about to be born, this invisible barrier that covers and protects the Milky Way star field will be opened conditionally. As long as the conditions are met, the experts in the starry sky will be able to enter and compete with the indigenous creatures in the Milky Way for the new primordial chaos era. After this battle for providence is over, the Milky Way star field will be fully opened. At that time, the 3,000 chaos demon gods born in the primordial chaos void will also be born. That represents the beginning of the new primordial chaos era. Because of this, on both sides of the Milky Way far in the distance, countless powerful forces have gathered over the countless years. They are all waiting for the opening of the Milky Way void. These powerful forces are different from the forces in the primordial chaos master fragment void. You all came from the primordial chaos master fragment void, so you naturally understand the classification of the forces there. In general, with the starry sky forbidden lands as an example, they are divided into 2 categories. The first category, Marquis, Emperor, and Emperor, respectively, rule small, medium, large, and top-tier starry sky forbidden lands. The second category, Universe Knights, Universe Masters, Universe Supremes, Primordial Beings, and Primordial Supreme Beings, respectively, rule 5 different types of forbidden lands, which are the initial, intermediate, advanced, top-tier, and top-tier forbidden lands. In other words, the starry sky forbidden lands ruled by emperors are top-tier forbidden lands. It is the same for the remnant star field, but this is only the first category of power level, and the so-called forbidden areas are the areas where the 5 great undying level warriors are in charge of. Supreme level forbidden lands are just a general term. Supreme level forbidden lands are also split into 5 levels. After all, there are 5 major realms before the heavenly Tao realm. The power that each major realm represents is greatly different from each other. The top-tier forbidden lands ruled by Universe Knights are the initial top-tier forbidden lands. The top-tier forbidden lands ruled by Universe Masters are the intermediate top-tier forbidden lands. The top-tier forbidden lands ruled by Universe Supremes. And the top-tier forbidden lands ruled by Primordial Beings are the top-tier forbidden lands. As for the Primordial Supreme Beings, other than the top-tier forbidden lands, the others are not enough to match them. In the main void of the primordial world fragment outside, although there are supreme forbidden areas of the second category, they are basically early stage, intermediate stage, and advanced stage supreme forbidden areas. There are top-tier forbidden lands ruled by primordial beings and top-tier forbidden lands ruled by primordial supreme beings, but there are not many of them, and here, at the end of the void, on both sides of the Milky Way, both the ferocious beast forbidden lands and the remnant star field are top-tier forbidden lands and star fields ruled by primordial supreme beings. It is even said that there are top-tier forbidden lands and star fields, in which there are true heavenly path realm beings and even stronger beings. However, they are usually in hibernation, and it is not easy for them to wake up and show themselves. What they are waiting for is the conditional opening of the invisible barrier that protects the entire Milky Way, so that their descendants can enter and fight for the new primordial chaos era, and our magic hall has the same goal. The new primordial chaos era is about to begin, and we have no choice but to move forward and fight for the new primordial chaos era. Only then can we continue to survive after the new primordial chaos era begins. According to the leader, it is not time for the source nest to be exposed, so we have to fight for a place to stay after entering the primordial chaos era. Saying this, Old Pig turned and looked at the end of the void. He stood up and waved his right hoof. Target, the right bank of the Milky Way. Forward. Howl. M. Chapter 50-26. It's not time for the Source Nest's headquarters to be exposed yet. Therefore, we can only fight for a place to stay after entering the primordial chaos void. Turning to the end of the void in front of him, Old Pig's spirit stood up halfway and waved his right hoof. Target, the right bank of the Milky Way, forward. Awoo, after saying the last sentence, he was filled with excitement. He raised his head and let out a shocking howl. It was very likely that there were true Heavenly Tao realm existences or even existences stronger than Heavenly Tao realm existences in the right bank of the Milky Way at the end of the void ahead. However, existences of that level had long been sleeping in their respective void lairs for countless years. Unless the Milky Way star field was fully opened or a conditional opening, they would not wake up at all. Old Pig Spirit was originally a native of this primordial chaos void. He was very familiar with the right bank of the Milky Way. Under normal circumstances, among the supreme powers of the right bank of the Milky Way, at most, there were some primordial era almighties and primordial era supremes. Even a peak desolate supremacy at the peak of the ninth stage, which was a half-step heavenly Tao realm, was rare. This, the only reason why existences of this level had been dormant on the right bank of the Milky Way for countless years was the Milky Way star field. They were only interested in this matter. As for otherworldly disputes, even if they knew or sensed it, they would be too lazy to care. It was better to continue their seclusion, accumulate and improve their strength, and prepare for the future opening of the Milky Way star field. It was precisely because of this that when Yi Xian was here, he was able to sweep through the entire area with the identity of the demonic ape. He caused half of the people on the right bank of the Milky Way to be in a state of panic. Even more so, as for later, when the void giant turtle came to this void and learned that Yi Xian could refine a level 30 heavenly Tao treasure pill, it had once wreaked havoc on the entire right bank of the Milky Way in order to collect the blood essence of the desolate supremes. Countless desolate supremes in the supreme powers were uneasy and fled into the void. At that time, in the huge right bank of the Milky Way, not a single desolate supremacy could be found. The strongest experts in the supreme powers were only primordial era almighties. This, Old Pig Spirit was in this primordial chaos void, so he was very clear about this. Although he had left for a period of time, but now, he had returned once again. Furthermore, his cultivation level had reached the perfected desolate supremacy level under the Fiend Pig 9 Transformations bloodline divine power state, which was equivalent to the half-step heavenly Tao realm. Son of in the past, when Yi Xian wreaked havoc on the right bank of the Milky Way with the identity of the cosmic berserk ape, his cultivation was not as strong as his. Even when the void gigantic tortoise wreaked havoc on the right bank of the Milky Way, he was only at the peak desolate supremacy level of 9th tier perfection. With this return, the Old Pig Spirit could be said to be very confident. The void tortoise must still be hibernating on the right bank of the Milky Way. He was one of them, so there was no need to consider. Apart from the void tortoise, there was not a single supreme of the ancients among the countless supreme forces on the right bank of the Milky Way. Given his current powerful cultivation base, he would be able to sweep through all the forces on the right bank. This was a forbidden zone that provided shelter for the 6 great magic hall legions, so there was no pressure at all. In fact, there was no need for too much planning and arrangement. From his point of view, he could just lead his army and charge over. If he had set his sights on a certain area, he could just attack and take it by force. Rumble, rumble, roar. Roar. Roar, screech. With that order, all kinds of battleships, fortresses, battleships, and ferocious beasts from the 6 legions of the demonic hall that were spread far and wide in the void charged forward at the same time. At this moment, the battleships rumbled, the battleships dazzled, and the ferocious beasts roared. The 6 great magic hall legions were like a huge wave in the void, surging forward and pushing forward. However, whether it was the Old Pig Spirit or the Black Palace led by the 7 gorgeous cultivators, they did not lead the way at the front this time. Instead, they retreated to the rear of the 6 great legions and followed behind. This was because at this moment, the 6 great magic hall legions were advancing toward the right bank of the Milky Way. After reaching there would be a suitable supreme force on the right bank that would become the target of the magic hall legions. In other words, the magic hall legions were now rushing to the battlefield. Since on the battlefield, there was naturally no reason for the commanders to charge and break through the enemy lines. According to convention, they should be at the back of the army and give out orders. As for the 6 great legions at the front, the black-robed desolate sovereign from the alliance of the remnants was the commander-in-chief at the front. In addition, there were also commanders within the 6 great legions, giving out orders one by one. This battle was extremely important to the Magic Hall because this was the first battle that the Magic Hall legions would engage in after entering the primordial chaos void. If they won this battle, they would be able to occupy a star domain owned by a supreme force as their base of operations. Naturally, they would be able to spread the name of the Magic Hall in this battle and win respect in the entire Milky Way. However, if they lost, the situation would be completely different. At that time, the reputation of the Magic Hall would be tarnished and they would be looked down upon the moment they arrived. The impact of this battle would be immeasurable in the future. Therefore, to the Magic Hall legions, this battle could only be won and not lost. Old Pig was clearly aware of this point, but he didn't feel any pressure at all. Currently, there wasn't a single Supreme Primordial in the Milky Way's right bank. With him in charge of the Magic Hall legions, even if they wanted to lose, it would be difficult. The formation of the Magic Hall legions was simply too large. Each of the 6 great legions had a majestic military strength. Now, they were spread out in the void, extending to the ends of one's vision. With such a large formation, although their speed wasn't slow, there was a limit to how fast they could move. Therefore, even though the entire army didn't stop for a single moment and had locked onto a single direction and sped through the void at full speed, it still took them more than a month to finally reach the Milky Way's right bank, 200 billion kilometers in front of them. In the originally pitch-black primordial chaos void, a ray of light suddenly appeared. Originally, it was just a thin line, but very quickly, as the 6 great legions of the Magic Hall continued to advance, this line of light also gradually expanded. When the army was only 150 billion kilometers away from the Milky Way's right bank, what entered their line of sight was an incomparably dazzling Milky Way. The Milky Way was so vast that it extended to the ends of one's vision. At this moment, the Magic Hall legions were advancing towards the left third node of the Milky Way's right bank. At this node, there was an extremely powerful forbidden area. In the past, there were 2 supreme primordial beings guarding this area. Later on, one of them was killed by the Void Tortoise, while the other escaped. Back then, when the old pig spirit followed Yi Xian into the primordial chaos void and went to the primordial chaos void, the ones guarding the demon antelope forbidden area were only a few supreme beings from the primordial era. Now, the old pig spirit didn't even put them in his eyes. Roar! Roar, roar, roar. What surprised him was that as the Magic Hall legions approached the demon antelope forbidden area 150 billion kilometers in front of them, a few shocking roars suddenly sounded from the demon antelope forbidden area. From their auras, it was clear that they were all old monster Huang Zun. Chapter 50-27. Roar. Roar, roar, roar. As the Magic Hall's army approached, several roars came from the Devil Antelope Forbidden Land 150 billion li away. From the aura, it was clear that they were all desolate ancestor old monsters. Then, more than a dozen figures rushed out from the Devil Antelope Forbidden Land. The dozen or so figures were all ferocious space beasts. The 4 leading figures emitted an incomparably valiant cultivation aura. Shockingly, they had all stepped into the desolate realm. However, they were only early or mid-stage desolate ancestor old monsters, and the strongest was only a 4th-order desolate ancestor. Behind the 4 desolate ancestor old monsters, there were more than a dozen figures, and they were all desolate ancestor experts. More than a dozen space beasts with cultivation bases above the level of Grand Cultivators had different bloodlines, especially the dozen Desolate Era Grand Cultivators behind them. They were all of different shapes and sizes, but there were no 2 with the same bloodline. Clearly, they were the leaders of the Demon Antelope Forbidden Land. As for the 4 desolate ancestor old monsters at the front, 3 of them were devil antelopes, and they were thousands of li long. Their bodies were pitch black, and they had a pair of ferocious blood horns. The other desolate ancestor old monster was a ferocious bird. Its head was like a cat, and its body was like an owl. It was very appropriate to call it an owl. This owl should be an outsider, and its strength was in the middle of the 4 desolate ancestor old monsters. It was neither too strong nor too weak, and it was only a step away from the peak of the early desolate ancestor realm. At this time, as they rushed out of the Devil Antelope Forbidden Land, the dozen or so desolate ancestor experts and old monsters unleashed their full strength, and they rushed over. After all, there were more than a dozen desolate ancestor experts and old monsters coming together, and one could imagine how majestic their aura was. While, at this time, in the Black Palace behind the Magic Hall's army, the 7 beauties did not appear, and their auras did not spread out. Old Pig's spirit Quo also entered a star fortress behind the army, and his aura was also hidden. Therefore, the dozen or so powerful supreme beings and Huang Zun activated the power in their bodies. Their cultivation auras gathered together, instantly forming an incomparably powerful pressure that swept out invisibly, enveloping the 6 armies of the Devil Hall with a bang. Suddenly, a voice rang out. Caught off guard, the expressions of countless experts in the 6 great armies changed. The army of the Devil Halls that was originally galloping forward also came to a sudden stop in midair. Invert, it wasn't cowardice, it was a conditioned reflex. After all, the pressure of the 4 primordial sovereigns and more than 10 wilderness almighties was too terrifying. In the entire army, other than the black-robed desolate supremacy, the strongest were only a dozen mighty figures from the primordial era. In the face of such a terrifying suppressive aura that swept over and enveloped them, such a reaction was expected. At this moment, the higher-ups of the 6 major legions in the Magic Hall were all dumbfounded. First, before they left, Old Pig's spirit had said in public that under normal circumstances, the most powerful forces on the right bank of the Milky Way were led by some powerful figures of the remote antiquity era and supreme masters of the remote antiquity. Even more so, even a desolate supremacy at the peak of the great perfection 9th stage, which was half a step into the heavenly way, was rarely seen. The only reason why such a level of existence had been dormant on the right bank of the Milky Way for countless years was because of the Milky Way star field. He was only interested in this matter. As for the other worldly disputes, even if they knew or sensed it, they would be too lazy to care. No, if he continued to cultivate in seclusion, he would accumulate and improve his strength in preparation for the opening of the Milky Way star field in the future. Moreover, when the master of the Magic Hall, Yi Xian, had not yet reached the desolate supremacy realm, he had already swept through all directions with the identity of the demon ape, stirring up half of the people on the right bank of the Milky Way star field. Because thus, he won an illustrious reputation. Again later, when the void giant tortoise came to this part of the void, it had also wreaked havoc on the right bank of the Milky Way with its own strength. Countless desolate supremacy old monsters from the powerful forces were in a panic and fled into the void. Since after that, not a single desolate elder could be found on the vast right bank of the Milky Way. The strongest experts in each of the strongest forces were only powerful figures from the primordial era. There was nothing to be afraid of. For example, the desolate elder. Only a month had passed, and these words were still ringing in their ears. Even the entire Magic Hall army had not reached the right bank of the Milky Way star field. There was still a distance of 150 billion miles in front of them. However, just in the forbidden area in front of the army, there were already 4 powerful desolate supremacy old monsters rushing out. In the other forbidden areas on the left and right, the situation would not be much worse. With these thoughts flashing through their minds, the higher-ups of the 6 great armies all subconsciously turned to look at the void behind them. Their expressions were strange, and their eyes revealed a trace of deep resentment that could not be dispersed. This dead pig is too unreliable. In the future, even if we cut off the beginning and end of his words, we would at most believe half of it. Roar. Screech. Roar, roar, roar. At this moment, there was another earth-shattering roar and howl in front of them. Put. Glancing over, the dozen or so desolate era powerhouses and old monster Huang Zun who had rushed out from the Devil Antelope Forbidden Land were closing in quickly. Their figures came to an abrupt halt as they stood in the dark void 50 billion miles away. Then, more than a dozen huge and powerful beasts, with their pairs of fierce eyes, swept around the Magic Hall army spread out in the void. One after a few rounds, their divine sense voice suddenly rang out, enveloping this part of the void. Which force does this army belong to? You don't look familiar. Not just unfamiliar. It's simply strange, a mix of dragons and snakes. When did the survivors actually mix with the beasts? And I can't see the difference between them, they seem to be equal existences. Which desolate supremacy forbidden area on the right bank of the Milky Way star field has joined forces with the remnant star field? What is the purpose of gathering an army to approach my demon antelope forbidden area? Approach? This word doesn't seem to be appropriate, right? This is clearly just a ragtag army, with such a large force. but there are only a dozen or so desolate supremacies and one desolate supremacies, and the only desolate supremacies is actually only a second-order desolate supremacies. With such strength, what right do they have to force my demon antelope forbidden area? Rather than saying that they came from the forbidden area, in my opinion, it is better to say that they are here to die. Although the combat strength of this ragtag army is not very good, they are clearly exuding an extremely rich energy aura from those strange-looking battleships of the remnants that we have never seen before. They should contain a huge amount of cultivation resources. So, if they are not here to deliver food to our demonic antelope forbidden land, what else can they be? Deliver food? This Supreme Lord is quite satisfied with it. No matter what their purpose is, since they are here, there is no need to leave today. Everyone, whether it is the desolate ancient survivors or the star beasts, including those strange-looking battleships, stay, roar. Roar, roar, roar. As soon as the voice fell, the roar suddenly sounded again, and the dozen or so powerful beasts behind the four desolate supremacies roared and rushed out at the same time. Chapter 50-28. No matter what their purpose is, since they are here, there is no need for them to leave today. Everyone, be it the primordial era survivors or the star beasts, including those strange-looking survivors, stay here, roar. Roar. As the voice of the four desolate Zune old monsters fell, the dozens of powerful beasts behind them raised their heads and roared. With a flash of their bodies, they rushed out at the same time. Needless to say, such an action was too arrogant. The army of the magic hall that was 50 billion miles in front of them was spread out endlessly in the void, and there was almost no end in sight. And among the 6 armies, there were at least a dozen powerful primordial era beings and a second-stage desolate supremacy. This group of old guys from the Devil Antelope Forbidden Land only sent out a dozen powerful primordial era beings to suppress the entire army of the Magic Hall and bring them back to the Devil Antelope's base camp. It was simply a blatant disregard, and it was infuriating. Behind the army, whether it was the old pig spirit or the 7 beautiful cultivators in the Black Palace, none of them made a sound. They did not even release their auras. Instead, they deliberately restrained themselves to avoid scaring away the 4 desolate Zune old monsters in the void in front of them. There were only a dozen powerful primordial era beings, so there was no need for them to make a move. Even the black-robed desolate supremacy did not need to make a move, and it was the same for the powerful primordial era beings in the 6 armies of the Magic Hall. If the 6 armies of the Magic Hall could not even deal with a dozen powerful primordial era beings, what practical significance would there be for such a majestic army that stretched as far as the eye could see? It could be said that whether it was the old pig spirit or the 7 beautiful cultivators in the Black Palace, they were all prepared to see how the 6 armies would perform in this battle. 5. The distance of 10 billion miles sounded very far, but for the powerful primordial era beings, it was nothing. They could reach it in a short while if they ran at full speed. At this time, the dozen powerful primordial era beasts in the void in front of them rumbled. In a short time, they had already left behind a distance of 10 billion miles in the void behind them, and they were closing in very quickly. Boom! Boom! It was also at this time that the army of the Magic Hall that spread out in the void reacted immediately. An army of 100,000 300,000 meter-wide blood-red war drums rushed out of the Sky River Army. The massive horns of the war drums were moving rapidly, aiming at the more than 10 desolate Zune old freaks in front of them from a long distance away in the vast space. Countdown to volley. 3, 2. Bombard. Before anyone could react, the current Devil Emperor, Mo Wen Tian, had already roared out the order in anger. Inside the 100,000 huge spiritual battleships, over 1,000 beehive-shaped nodes lit up at the same time while energy was being transmitted through the dense connecting pipes. Inside the over 1,000 beehive-shaped battleships, each of which had a diameter of 3,000 m, were a great number of demon warriors. Each beehive-shaped node would be guarded by a grand priest of demon race or a high-level member of the royal family who was good at spiritual power. In this way, every 3,000 meters wide honeycomb-shaped battleship had tens of thousands of demonic cultivators. Under the command of the high priest or the imperial demon clan powerhouse in the node warship, they would fully activate the demon core in their brain and exert their spiritual power, and gather all their spiritual power together in an instant. The the spiritual power would turn into a powerful invisible pulse, connecting the huge special material tube-shaped objects to the nodes, and converging toward the smallest inner circle of the horn. After everything was completed, all the spiritual power pulses gathered from these thousands of nodes would be blasted out in one fell swoop by the joint forces of the 9 royal demon powerhouses who were sitting in the 9-node beehives in the smallest inner circle of the horn. This was definitely a great killing weapon. No, the moment the spiritual power storm rushed out, it would be magnified by the 9 layers of the horn, forming a terrifying and invisible starry sky-level spiritual hurricane. It could be said that it was impossible to guard against the invisible bombardment of the enemy's battleships. There was no way to escape, because the vast void in front of the army was a vast and boundless fan, which belonged to the attack area. Although the demon army had only mobilized 100,000 spiritual battle towers this time, each one of them was capable of killing a large number of demons. Boom! The spiritual hurricane was invisible and couldn't be resisted at all. Even the energy shields of the battleships, fortresses, and strongholds were useless. At this moment, under the command of the current Devil Emperor, Mo Wen Tian, the 100,000 spiritual battle towers in the void finally let out an earth-shaking roar. Roar! The terrifying sound wave was deafening, and an invisible tide like the sea of the starry sky leaked out from the core node. It followed the outer 9 rings of the spiritual battleships and continued to expand. After that, it was as if the mountains and seas were overturned, and a terrifying invisible force raged toward the front. Crack, boom. Rumble. There was suspense. In the void in front, a large number of clear tearing sounds like rain instantly sounded, covering the sky and the earth, and its momentum was astonishing. In the line, the void tens of billions of miles away was being torn apart inch by inch, and a large amount of void turbulence shot out. This kind of power, if it was the previous spiritual battleships, would definitely not be able to achieve. At least the effective attack range would definitely not reach the level of hundreds of millions of miles. All along, the demon race had been fully displaying the spiritual battleships. Just from the appearance, these 100,000 spiritual battleships were very different from before. Although they couldn't be compared with the spiritual battleships personally modified by Yi Xian, compared to the large strongholds with a diameter of 100,000 meters, they were on a completely different level, and their power was absolutely terrifying. It was only a single volley, but the universe void tens of billions of miles away crumbled inch by inch. In some of the larger void rifts, a large amount of void turbulence even formed a void vortex that looked like a black hole. Following these void whirlpools suddenly appeared, and a terrifying invisible suction force spread out in an instant, and in the blink of an eye, it swallowed a few powerful ferocious beast-old monsters, causing them to fall into the void turbulence and be exiled, completely disappearing. However, this was the primordial void after all. As soon as the cracks appeared, they were quickly repaired under the influence of the primordial law. The speed was so fast that it was shocking, but those few powerful primordial old monsters were completely swallowed in this short period of time. Obviously, they couldn't come back. There were a total of 12 primordial old monsters that arrogantly shot over from the opposite void. Now, the demon race's war battleships instantly killed half of them in one shot. The remaining 6 primordial old monsters were all stained with blood and suffered heavy injuries. Obviously, they were no longer able to fight. Seeing this scene, the 4 desolate old monsters standing in the void 50 billion miles away were dumbfounded on the spot. They were stunned and muttered to themselves, hiss. How could this be? Just now, what happened? Chapter 50-29. Hiss. How could this be? Just now, what happened? With just one blow, the 12 remote antiquity-era experts were instantly killed by the demon battle army. Even the remaining 6 remote antiquity-era experts were all stained with blood and suffered serious injuries. It was obvious that they no longer had the strength to fight. Surface-facing this strange scene, the 4 desolate elders standing in the void 50 billion miles away were dumbfounded. One of them even muttered to himself in shock, as if he was sleep-talking. Tight then, the 4 of them trembled violently at the same time. Their expressions changed slightly as they gasped and roared in shock. Damn it, this is not the battleship of the remnants. I have never heard of this type of battleship of the remnants. Its power is too strong. It is clearly a battle for slaughter. This is a great killing machine. Outsiders, they must be outsiders. They should be from an unknown plane of the void. Because of different cultivation civilizations, such strange things were born. Unfortunately, although this thing is extraordinary, in the face of absolute strength, everything is just a trick. No matter how large the formation of this outsider army is, it can't withstand the attack of 4 remote antiquity-era experts. There's no need to say more, let's take action immediately. My devil antelope forbidden land is not to be trifled with, they will have to pay the price. However, these strange battleships seem to have some research value, there's no need to destroy them. Let's kill the desolate venerable in this army to vent our anger, and bring the rest back to the forbidden land. Roar. Ruthless, rumble. Then, the 4 desolate elders all raised their heads and roared wildly. The power in their bodies was pushed to the limit. Their aura surged as they charged toward the Magic Hall army 50 billion miles away. Although the Magic Hall army only had 1 black-robed desolate elder, whose cultivation was only second-order desolate elder, to ensure that they could kill him, the 4 of them had to work together. Desolate elders were difficult to kill as they basically had life-saving trump cards. Although the cultivation of the 4 of them was stronger than the black-robed desolate elder, it was still quite limited and did not have an overwhelming advantage. As if only 1 or 2 desolate elders were dispatched, it was impossible to ensure the outcome of the battle. It was very likely that the black-robed desolate elder would escape. Such an outcome was definitely not what they wanted to see. Therefore, the 4 of them working together was expected. This scene was within the black-robed desolate elder's expectations, but he was not afraid. Not to mention the 7 beautiful cultivators, in a star fortress behind the Magic Hall army, there was still a peak 9th order great perfection desolate elder who was a true half-step heavenly Tao realm elder. Although the pig spirit was somewhat unreliable, his half-step heavenly Tao realm cultivation level was nothing to scoff at. Of course, even a half-step heavenly Tao realm expert could not fight 1 against 4, killing all 4 desolate supremacy old freaks at the early and middle stages of the desolate supremacy realm. In fact, if the other party was careful and prepared, if the old pig spirit did not have any special means, he might not be able to completely kill 1 of them, even though he could completely crush them in a head-on battle. Supreme Primordial was too difficult to kill. Each of them had their own trump cards. As an old monster himself, Huang Zun knew this better than anyone else. From the black-robed desolate supremacy's point of view, the reason why the old pig spirit had yet to reveal himself, to the point where he did not even emit a bit of his aura, was to wait for an opportunity to strike. He was looking for an opportunity to kill the 4 desolate supremacies in 1 strike. Height wasn't the Demon Palace's master, Yi Xian, who possessed the divine Nong 9-colored flames that were so powerful that it made people tremble in fear. Facing the old monster Huang Zun, who was at the same cultivation level as him, if he wanted to kill him, he could only use this kind of sneak attack. There was nothing to be embarrassed about. Didn't the powerful Void Tortoise do the same when it hunted down Desolate Zun in the most powerful forbidden lands and star regions on the right bank of the Milky Way? He had always been hiding in other unknown voids, waiting to capture the aura of a certain old monster Huang Zun. After secretly locking onto him, he would suddenly take action. If that was the case, even if it was in existence at the level of the Void Giant Tortoise, if it were to chase after a desolate supremacy old monster face to face, an initial stage desolate supremacy old monster might be exhausted to death. However, as long as it was a middle stage desolate supremacy, no matter how badly it was tortured, there was basically no possibility of it being completely killed. However, even if old pig spirit made a move, it was absolutely impossible for him to kill all 4 desolate venerable old monsters in front of him. However, if he seized the right opportunity, it was still possible for him to kill 1 or 2 of them when they were caught off guard. However, the black-robed desolate supremacy had to cooperate in this matter. He was an existence that had lived for a long time. Although he did not communicate with the old pig spirit using his divine sense, he could vaguely guess his plan. Yes, therefore, at this moment, when he saw the 4 desolate venerable old monsters roaring in anger and charging at him at the same time, a dim light flashed in the eyes of the black-robed desolate venerable. He waved his hand and summoned an ancient bronze bell to hang above his head. It poured out a light curtain to protect his body. Tight then, with a flip of his right hand, a short spear appeared in his right hand. Then, with a shake of his shoulder, he directly blasted forward. In the blink of an eye, his figure had already rushed out of the Magic Hall army and arrived at the universe void billions of miles away. This was also to prevent the 6 legions of the Magic Hall from being caught in the crossfire in the following battle. After all, this was a battle between desolate venerable old monsters. No matter how powerful the 6 legions were, they were only at the ordinary level of power. Once the violent energy of the desolate venerable old monster raged out, the various battleships, starships, and star fortresses of the 6 legions could not withstand it at all. Seeing this scene, the 4 desolate Zune old monsters who were shooting over from the opposite side were taken aback, then they burst out laughing at the same time. They didn't stop moving, but a look of disdain appeared on their faces as they laughed out loud. Ha ha ha, did you see that? This black-robed friend actually rushed out of the army alone, and he even summoned a bronze bell hanging above his head and held a short spear in his hand. This is clearly the rhythm of a head-on battle with us. He really doesn't know what death is. Sigh, you can't say that. Maybe he hid his cultivation and looked like a stage 2 desolate venerable, but in fact, he is a stage 9 perfection half-step heavenly Tao. Who knows? So what if he is a stage 9 perfection half-step heavenly Tao? We will still beat him until he pisses his pants. Ha ha ha. Those words were too ear-piercing, especially the last sentence. It directly provoked the old pig spirit. Once he thought of how the 4 initial and middle stage desolate venerables dared to ridicule a peak desolate venerables at the 9th rank peak desolate venerables in front of so many people, they simply did not put him in their eyes at all. The old pig spirit's heart immediately surged with endless fury. No. With some hesitation, he immediately concealed the cultivation aura in his body and maintained it at the stage 3 desolate venerable realm. Then, with a flash of his body, he directly rushed out. Standing on the ground, he slammed his front hooves and roared angrily, "Hey, this old pig is here, who dares to be presumptuous?" Chapter 50-30. Hey, this old pig is here. Who dares to be presumptuous? Roar, the 4 desolate supremacy old monsters, who were only at the beginning and middle stage, actually dared to ridicule a peak desolate supremacy at the 9th rank perfection stage in front of everyone. They did not put him in their eyes at all. The old pig spirit's heart was instantly filled with boundless anger. No. With some hesitation, he immediately concealed the aura in his body and maintained it at the 3rd rank desolate venerable realm. Then, with a flash of his body, he directly rushed out of the star fortress. Out now, in the void of the universe outside the star fortress, a person was walking with a pair of front hooves. He was furious and let out a loud roar. Needless to say, he had been concealing his aura all along. At this moment, he suddenly rushed out from a star fortress behind the Magic Hall army. A pair of iron hooves suddenly slammed, creating a loud sound. Caught off guard, the 4 desolate venerable old monsters of the Devil Antelope Forbidden Land were shocked. Almost subconsciously, the 4 desolate venerable old monsters turned their gazes at the old pig spirit. Especially when they sensed the aura of his aura, they were immediately enraged. Damn black-skinned pig, why are you howling? Your loud voice almost scared this old man. You're just a 3rd rank desolate venerable, yet you dare to do this. The one who is truly presumptuous is you. Do you dare to come over and accept your death? You really don't know what's good for you. A 3rd rank desolate venerable actually dares to take advantage of your seniority. You really haven't seen the world. As expected of someone who came from an unknown void plane. Poor and remote, you really don't know anything. Come over and accept your death. Your grandpa Ling will slap you to death with one hoof. Roar. Ruthless, the 4 desolate venerable old monsters deliberately provoked the old pig spirit with their words to prevent him from taking the opportunity to escape. They originally thought that this mysterious army of outsiders only had 1 desolate supremacy old monster, but from the looks of it, there was clearly an oversight. The remnant elder that had rushed out previously should only be the 2nd in command. After all, he was only a rank 2 desolate supremacy, so he was in charge of leading this huge army in the open, trekking through the void. Until the number one figure in the army was obviously this third-order desolate venerable old pig spirit. This point could be proven when he rushed out from a particularly large and strange battleship behind the army. Generally speaking, the highest commander of such a large starry sky army would sit at the very back. Because of this, although they were a little surprised by the appearance of the old pig spirit, they were also certain that there were only two Huang Zun old monsters in this mysterious army of outsiders. Matter in fact, their guess was basically correct, because the 7 great alluring cultivators would not show themselves easily. With the old pig spirit around, there was no need for them to show themselves. While if the old pig spirit couldn't handle it, then there was no point for them to show up. Therefore, it was actually not much of a mistake to think that there were only 2 desolate elders guarding the army of the Devil Palace. It was just that they had never expected that this seemingly unremarkable black-skinned old pig's cultivation and strength would actually far surpass their imaginations. Of course, the distance between them was still so far, so it was impossible for the old pig spirit to expose his real aura at this moment. If he did that, the 4 old guys would be so scared that they would turn around and flee. It would be impossible for him to kill 1 or 2 of them at that time. Roar! How dare you talk back to this pig? If you have the ability, don't run away. This old pig will stomp you all into meat paste. The pig spirit was not stupid. He naturally saw through the opponent's plan, but he did not restrain himself because of this. Instead, he said what was in his heart, so that the opponent's vigilance would be lowered to the lowest. After a roar, the old pig spirit's shoulders shook, and his entire body turned into a ray of light and shot forward. The strength of the third-order Huang Zun hidden in his body was pushed to the extreme. In the blink of an eye, he passed through the 6 great armies of the magic hall and arrived at the void in front of the army. He did not stop, and his speed did not decrease in the slightest as he continued to rush forward. After a while, he was only less than 10 billion miles away from the 4 desolate venerables of the demonic antelope forbidden land. At this moment, the old pig spirit and the black-robed Huang Zun quickly exchanged glances. With just a glance, they reached a consensus in an instant. Without any hesitation, the brass bell hanging above the head of the black-robed desolate venerable suddenly emitted a buzzing sound. In an instant, it bloomed with an incomparably blazing golden light. Its speed was too fast, like a waterfall across the sky, directly locking onto Owl, who was 10 billion miles away. The owl's cultivation was the same as his, which was only a second-order Huang Zun. It was normal for the black-robed Huang Zun to choose him as the target, and it would not arouse suspicion. But, in fact, the reason why he did so was to restrain the owl, so as to prevent him from escaping immediately after realizing that something was wrong. This owl was different from the other 3 demon antelopes. He was a ferocious bird that was generally good at speed. If no one restrained him, once he escaped, it would be very difficult to catch up with him. Xiao! At this moment, the brass bell hanging above his head emitted a curtain of light that swept over and enveloped the owl's body. The black-robed Huang Zun's eyes flashed with a cold light. His right hand clenched the short spear in his palm, and his entire body turned into a beam of light that shot over. In the blink of an eye, it had already arrived in front of them. It began to fight with the owls in the air. This was the old monster Huang Zun's life and death battle. The aura was fierce and the scene was shocking. The chi in the void within a radius of 10 billion miles was in chaos. The battlefield was shrouded in chaotic and violent energy. Soon, it was difficult to see the black-robed Huang Zun and the owl's figures. At this moment, the other 3 demon antelopes did not pay much attention to it. In fact, they had the same plan in mind. The old pig spirit's cultivation was not bad, and had already reached the 3rd-order Huang Zun. To kill an existence of this level, the 3 of them had to join forces and surround him. Then, they would have to secretly cooperate in order to have a chance. This obviously required a certain amount of time. If during the battle, the black-robed Huang Zun saw that the situation was not good and immediately fled, it would be difficult for the 3 of them to track him down. But now, with the owl restraining him, the 3 of them could relax and use all their strength to encircle and annihilate the black-skinned old pig. As long as they could successfully kill the black-skinned old pig, they could then turn around and surround the black-robed Huang Zun. The final result was obvious. The other party would not be able to hold on for long. In a short period of time, he would be completely annihilated. As these thoughts flashed through their minds, the three demon antelopes with desolate venerable cultivation base quickly exchanged glances. Coincidentally, the old pig spirit was already within 10 billion miles. Without hesitation, they immediately surrounded him and proudly roared, roar. Screech. Roar, 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 old black pig, you really aren't afraid of death. You actually dare to fight 1 against 3. Could it be that you rely on your thick skin to withstand a beating? Kakeek, or maybe it's because I'm itching for a beating. This is also possible. Chapter 50-31. Screech. Roar, 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 old black pig, you're really not afraid of death. You actually dare to fight 1 against 3. Could it be that you're relying on your thick skin to withstand a beating? Kakeek, or maybe he's itching for a beating and is looking for a beating. This is also possible. As the old black pig's figure shot over, the 3 desolate venerable devil antelopes quickly exchanged glances. Without hesitation, they immediately surrounded the old black pig's figure and proudly roared, taunting him, roar. You're about to die, but you still dare to taunt me. You're the ones who are truly courting death. He was now within 10 billion miles of Ji Hao, and the 3 old men were standing in 3 directions, surrounding him. The distance between them was only 2 to 3 billion miles. With such a short distance, they could arrive in front of him in an instant and suddenly attack. Yes, as such, the old black pig's heart, which had been in his throat all this time, finally settled down. After raising his head and roaring angrily, the voice of the old black pig's consciousness suddenly rang out, remember, today's battle is the flag-raising battle of the Magic Hall. Those who kill you are the pig tyrant. Tyrant was the name Yi Xian had brought the old black pig from the primordial void to the main void of the eldritch world fragment. After letting the old black pig know that Yi Xian had established the Magic Hall and had become the master of the Magic Hall, the old black pig had insisted on a domineering name. As such, Yi Xian had casually given him a title. Pig Tyrant was the name of the tyrant of pigs. Yi Xian at that time, Xian had only said it as a joke and was even mocking the old black pig. Unexpectedly, the old black pig liked it very much. From then on, he called himself the Pig Tyrant of the Magic Hall. At that time, there was a reason why he had announced his official name before attacking and explained that this battle was the flag-raising battle of the Magic Hall in this primordial void. Here at this time, the army that was charging towards the Magic Hall was only the 4 desolate supremacies and a dozen desolate era experts from the Devil Antelope Forbidden Land. But in reality, there were other desolate era experts and desolate supremacies spying on them from the void hundreds of billions of li away. Obviously, they were the higher-ups of the 2 forbidden lands adjacent to the Demonic Antelope Forbidden Land. Because the Demonic Antelope Forbidden Land already had nearly 20 desolate antiquity experts and old monster desolate sovereigns, in order to avoid suspicion, they stayed in the distance and did not approach. The pig spirit's roar could be heard clearly even from hundreds of billions of kilometers away. After this battle, the famous general of the Magic Hall would appear out of nowhere. It was as if he had officially raised his flag in the chaos void. Similarly, his name as the Pig Tyrant of the Magic Hall would also become famous on the right bank of the Milky Way because of this battle. After all, he was a peak desolate supremacy at the 9th stage perfection realm, a supreme existence that was half a step into the heavenly Tao realm. Thinking about how he would be shunned when he went out in the future, and how even desolate supremacies would have to treat him with respect, the pig spirit was inexplicably excited. Roar. Screech, how did he grow such guts? How dare he be so arrogant at such a time? There's no need to say anything else, just kill him. When we return, we'll peel off his black pig skin and lay it on the ground outside the cave abode. The 3 devil antelopes were finally enraged by the pig spirit's arrogance. They roared in unison and immediately attacked together. Their bodies transformed into beams of light as they charged towards the pig spirit. The pig spirit's cultivation level was not weak either. He was already a rank 3 desolate supremacy. If they wanted to kill him, the best way was to surround him and use their full strength to activate the power in their bodies. They would use their strongest techniques to kill him. They were afraid that this joint attack would not be able to kill him on the spot. At the very least, they would severely injure him. As long as they could injure him severely, they could basically guarantee his death. In a heavily injured state, the Stage 3 Desolate Supremacy was caught off guard, and it was difficult for it to immediately use its secret technique to escape. Even if it was delayed for a short period of time, it was enough for them to attack a second time and kill it with an iron-blooded bombardment. Phew! Whoosh whoosh whoosh, the sound of the air being torn apart was extremely sharp. The 3 devil antelopes shot over from 3 different directions at the same time. They were tens of millions of miles long and were completely black. Their auras were extremely cold, and they had all pushed their strength to the limit. However, Old Monster Desolate Supremacy only wanted to kill him in one strike. His speed was extremely fast. They were originally 2 to 3 billion miles away from the pig spirit. Now, in less than half a breath, they were already within 1 billion miles. Awoo! 3 initial and middle stage Desolate Supremacies dare to attack the Magic Hall's pig tyrant. Your bravery is rather commendable. At this moment, the old pig spirit no longer hesitated. He raised his head and let out a furious roar. At the same time, his figure disappeared from the center of the encirclement in an instant. In less than an instant, when the old pig spirit's figure reappeared, he was already behind one of the devil antelopes. And, moreover, before teleporting, his body was only about 10 million miles long. Like the 3 devil antelopes, his cultivation was only at the 3rd level of the Desolate Supremacy. But now, with just a single teleportation, everything had completely changed. It was over. After teleporting, the old pig spirit's body had reached a size of 40 million miles. The cultivation aura emitted from his body had reached the peak of his own demonic pig's 9 transformations bloodline ability, which was the peak of the 9th level of the Desolate Supremacy. Rumble, bam! With a moment of hesitation, the old pig spirit's figure silently appeared behind him. His pair of large black pig hooves immediately reached out from the void. In the next moment, an earth-shattering rumble of thunder sounded. A pair of large black hooves smashed down fiercely. In the blink of an eye, they had already landed on the head of the devil antelope. The result was obviously not suspenseful. With a huge explosion, the devil antelope's entire body exploded on the spot. In the blink of an eye, it turned into a rapidly spreading scarlet blood mist. Whoosh! As its body exploded and turned into a blood mist, the old pig spirit waved his hand immediately. An incomparably majestic invisible force rolled out from his body. In the blink of an eye, it enveloped a radius of 10,000 miles. All the blood mist that had just spread out was swept up by him and absorbed into his body. In the end, after the battle, when he saw Yi Xian, he would hand it over to him and let him refine the blood essence of the Desolate Supremacy. All of this took a long time to describe, but in fact, it happened in half a breath's time. For the other 2 devil antelopes, they only saw a blur in front of their eyes before they lost sight of their target. Then, before they could react to what had happened, a behemoth suddenly appeared behind one of their colleagues in the opposite void. It was an enlarged version of the black-skinned pig just now. Even more. The terrifying thing was that the aura emitted from his body had actually reached the peak of the 9th level of the Desolate Supremacy. This was clearly a terrifying half-step heavenly path. Everything was like a dream, but it was as real as this place. They were clearly fooled. As these thoughts flashed through their minds, the 2 surviving devil antelopes trembled violently. Their expressions changed wildly, and they subconsciously exclaimed in horror. Chapter 5032. Then, an enlarged version of a black-skinned pig suddenly appeared behind one of their colleagues in the opposite void. Its body was suffused with the terrifying aura of a half-step into the heavenly Tao. The 2 surviving devil antelopes trembled violently, and their expressions changed drastically. At the same time, a loud rumbling sound rang out. Just within a short distance of several 100 million miles, that colleague who still didn't know what had happened behind him had already been smashed by the pair of black hooves of that giant black boar person. His entire body exploded, instantly turning into a cloud of blood mist, and his body and soul were completely destroyed. It was only at this moment that the two of them subconsciously cried out in shock and astonishment from their mouths. Hiss. What happened? Half-step Heavenly Tao? He's a half-step Heavenly Tao. You only know now. Unfortunately, it's too late. When the shocked cries entered his ears, the old pig spirit happened to wave his hooves and absorb the boundless blood mist in front of him into his body. He grinned and turned to look at the two old fellows. Swish, at the same time, his movements did not stop at all. Pang Da's 40-million-kilometer-long figure disappeared in an instant. When he reappeared, he was already behind the other desolate venerable old monster. Shung of the two surviving desolate venerable old monsters, one was a second-order desolate venerable, and the other was a fourth-order desolate venerable. At this moment, the target chosen by the old pig spirit was the weaker one, only a second-order desolate venerable. Of course. Therefore, he had his reasons for doing so. Now, his cultivation had been exposed. No matter how fast he attacked, the two devil antelopes would definitely be on guard. Under such circumstances, if he chose the fourth-order desolate venerable as his second target, he was not very confident that he could successfully kill it. The key was that he did not have Yi Xian's 9-colored flame C in his hand, so he could not stop the target from escaping. On the other hand, this second-order devil antelope's cultivation was weaker. Even if it had already realized the danger and knew that it had been tricked, its survival was in danger. However, with the old pig spirit's full-strength attack, there was at least a 60% chance of successfully killing it. One was less than 20%, while the other was as high as 60%. There was no need to say more about the choice. Old. The pig spirit was also hoping to obtain a level 30 Heavenly Tao treasure pill from Yi Xian. And one of the main ingredients for the Heavenly Tao treasure pill was the Desolate Supremacy's blood essence. Now that he had encountered such an opportunity, he naturally wanted to ensure that he obtained the blood essence safely. Rumble, bang. While teleporting away, the old pig spirit raised his pair of front hooves and pushed the power in his body to the extreme. Then, he smashed down fiercely from the void. In the next moment, an earth-shattering rumble of thunder rang out, and a pair of large black hooves smashed down from the sky. In the blink of an eye, it had already landed on the head of the target. Without any suspense, following the loud explosion, the Rank 2 Desolate Supremacy's body immediately exploded. In the blink of an eye, it turned into a scarlet blood mist that spread out. Xiao. This was already the second target, and he had finally successfully killed it. As his body exploded and turned into a bloody mist, the old pig spirit, who had completed his goal, felt relieved. However, he did not delay and immediately waved his hand. An incomparably majestic invisible force swept out from his body. In the blink of an eye, it enveloped a radius of 10,000 miles. The boundless blood mist that had just spread out was all swept up by him and absorbed into his body. Everything went too smoothly. In just 2 breaths of time, the 2 Desolate Supremacy old monsters were killed. Their bodies and souls were destroyed, and the bloody mist that exploded from their bodies was instantly absorbed. Not a single strand of hair was left behind. This was definitely an instant kill, and it was 2 consecutive instant kills of the Desolate Supremacy. Screech, bam. Nearly 1 billion miles away, the last demonic antelope, who was a rank 4 Desolate Supremacy, was so scared that its entire body started to tremble. After raising its head and letting out an incomparably shrill roar, the pair of sharp horns that grew in front of its head on its huge pitch-black body suddenly exploded without any warning, emitting an earth-shattering sound. As the 2 blood-colored horns exploded, an incomparably dense blood mist instantly appeared in the void. Its speed was very fast, and it directly spread out. In less than half a breath, it had already completely enveloped the figure of the demonic antelope of the 4th step. Seeing this, a cold light flashed in the old pig spirit's eyes. With a flash of his body, he directly teleported away. Swish, the sound of something breaking through the air rang out. The distance of less than 1 billion miles was traversed by the old pig spirit in less than 1/10 of an instant. He appeared at the edge of the blood mist that was tens of thousands of miles away. However, he didn't even have the chance to make a move. Just, at the same time his figure appeared, the blood mist that enveloped the entire body of the demonic antelope of the fourth step, which was tens of thousands of miles in diameter, was actually faster than his teleportation speed. In the blink of an eye, it had already condensed to the extreme, turning into a tiny bloodlight that was like a firefly. Tight, then, just as the old pig spirit's figure appeared and was about to make a move, the tiny bloodlight that was like a firefly flashed and disappeared in an instant. This was obviously a bloodline's secret technique. This demonic antelope of the fourth step should have paid a great price to self-destruct the pair of blood-colored giant horns on its head, turning into a thick blood mist that could not be dispersed. This blood mist must have some kind of special ability. In an instant, its body shrank to the extreme, and in the blink of an eye, it disappeared in a flash. This result surprised the old pig spirit. Although he didn't intend to kill the demonic antelope of the fourth step on the spot, if he couldn't kill it, it wouldn't be a problem to at least torture it. This old fellow was the one who was the most arrogant. He actually dared to provoke him, the pig tyrant of the magic hall. Just like that, he escaped without any damage. The old pig spirit was really unhappy and felt that his reputation had been damaged. With a gloomy expression, he immediately extended the power of his divine sense to the surrounding void and began to investigate. Since his cultivation strength had been exposed, the old pig spirit no longer had any scruples. The peak desolate supremacy of the ninth step, which was also the terrifying divine sense of a half-step heavenly Tao realm, was fully released by him. In just an instant, the auras of the desolate supremacies in the powerful forbidden zones on both sides of the void hundreds of billions of miles away were captured by the old pig spirit. As soon as the auras came into contact, these old fellows were like birds startled by the twang of a bow and immediately retreated to their respective forbidden zones. There were less than 10 desolate venerable old monsters in these two forbidden lands. The strongest one among them was only a rank 6 desolate venerable. He was still one rank away from the late stage rank 7 desolate venerable. Compared to the old pig spirit, he was too far away. He was no match for the old pig spirit. Naturally, he did not dare to provoke him. But, unfortunately, even though his divine sense had extended to the void more than 300 billion miles away in an instant, he still couldn't capture the slightest bit of aura of the fourth step demonic antelope. Clearly, the demonic antelope's bloodline mystic technique allowed him to escape an astonishing distance. It was probably more than 400 billion miles away. Under such circumstances, it was obviously impossible to find him again. As these thoughts flashed through the old pig spirit's mind, he sighed gloomily. Then, a cold light flashed in his eyes. He turned to the right side of the void where the chaotic aura of the battle was taking place. Chapter 50-33. The two great forces on the left and right of the demon antelope forbidden land were also the strongest forbidden lands ruled by fierce beasts, not the remnant star area ruled by the survivors. Left. The strongest forbidden land on the left was called the Xia Yan Forbidden Land, and the strongest forbidden land on the right was called the Shao Kong Forbidden Land. Although the overall strength of these strongest forbidden lands that were adjacent to each other were definitely higher and lower, they were basically the same, and there would not be too big of a difference. Otherwise, this kind of peaceful situation could only exist temporarily, and one day it would be broken, when the giant void tortoise was raging on the right bank of the Milky Way, hunting powerful fierce beasts of the desolate venerable realm everywhere. It was indeed difficult to find a single desolate venerable in the strongest forbidden lands on the right bank of the Milky Way. It was not only the strongest forbidden lands ruled by fierce beasts, but also the remnant star area ruled by the survivors. After all, the giant void tortoise was a legendary top powerhouse, and they did not know that the giant void tortoise only hunted desolate venerable realm fierce beasts of the starry sky. Therefore, during that time, under the panic of the people, all the desolate venerable old monsters in the strongest forbidden lands and star areas of the entire right bank of the Milky Way left here and entered the secret void to temporarily lie low. Such days continued for a long time, but later, a desolate venerable old monster who returned because of an important matter unexpectedly found that after returning to his territory on the right bank of the Milky Way, he did not see the giant void tortoise appear, and only then did he realize that it had left. After that, as the news spread, The desolate venerable old monsters who were originally in the strongest forbidden lands and star areas of the right bank of the Milky Way continued to return. By now, in almost all the strongest star areas and forbidden lands of the right bank, there were varying numbers of desolate venerable old monsters. Void, the shadow of the giant void tortoise, had become a thing of the past. As for the violent ape that had stirred up panic in nearly half of the right bank of the Milky Way and was suspected to be related to the giant void tortoise, because it had been missing for a long time, so now it was no longer mentioned, the demon antelope forbidden land, the Xia Yan forbidden land, and the Shao Kong forbidden land were all located near the left third node of the right bank of the Milky Way. Because of this proximity, the overall strength of these three strongest forbidden lands was basically the same, and there was not much difference. There were 4 desolate elders in the Devil Antelope Forbidden Land. It was the same for the Roaring Void Forbidden Land and the Roaring Mist Forbidden Land. However, compared to the Devil Antelope Forbidden Land, the Dawn Mist Forbidden Land and Psi Space Forbidden Land were obviously stronger. Among the 4 desolate venerables guarding these 2 forbidden lands, the strongest one was a 6th-order desolate venerable. They were not far from reaching the late 7th-order desolate venerable realm. Or perhaps, the Demon Antelope Forbidden Land, which was slightly weaker than the desolate venerable, was located between the Xiaya Forbidden Land and the Sikong Forbidden Land. This was also a kind of buffer that everyone knew about. It prevented the Xiaya Forbidden Land and the Sikong Forbidden Land from being on guard against each other. It saved them from being on guard all the time and being too nervous. The 4 desolate venerables in the Mist Forbidden Land were all a type of giant space python. To be more precise, they were colored pythons. Moreover, these colored pythons reproduced by themselves, so all of them were females. Forbidden. The reason why this forbidden land was named so was because when these colored pythons breathed in and out in the void, there would always be a colorful glow, like a dense fog. It was very beautiful, which was why it was named the Mist Forbidden Land. However, perhaps because they felt that the appearance of their colored pythons was too frightening, all the colored pythons in the Mist Forbidden Land would transform into the appearance of the remnants. They were delicate and beautiful. If one didn't know the details and entered, they would think that they had entered a powerful remnant star field full of stunning beauties. As for the Sikong Forbidden Land, the 4 desolate venerables guarding it were all a type of Sikong demon hound. This demon hound also liked to breathe in and out. When looking at it from a distance, it looked like it was roaring into the sky, which was how it got its name. Previously, when the black-robed desolate sovereign led the huge 6 great demon legions of the demonic hall and headed straight towards the demonic antelope forbidden land, the 8 desolate sovereigns in the Xia Haze Forbidden Land and the Shao Kong Forbidden Land also sensed the aura in the void outside the Forbidden Land. However, whether it was the 4 colorful pythons in the Forbidden Land of Roaring Clouds or the 4 howling space demonic hounds in the Forbidden Land of Roaring Clouds, they did not show up immediately. Instead, they were lurking in the inner void at the edge of the Forbidden Land, quietly watching everything. On one hand, it was because the 6 legions of the Magic Hall were coming from the distant void, which was right in the middle of the 2 forbidden lands. Even if they didn't show up, the 4 existences in the demonic antelope forbidden land would not sit idly by. It was a good opportunity for them to test the depth of this strange foreign star legions. On the other hand, it was because the Mist Forbidden Land and the Sikong Forbidden Land had always been vigilant against each other. At the same time, they tried to restrain themselves to avoid misunderstandings. They originally thought that there was only one old monster, Huang Zun, in this strange foreign army. Therefore, when the old pig spirits suddenly appeared, the 8 old guys who were hiding in the void space around the Devil Antelope Forbidden Land were quite surprised. However, a 3rd-order desolate venerable's black-skinned old pig was obviously not in their eyes. Only that's right, what they never expected was that this seemingly unremarkable, even somewhat deserving of a beating, actually hid his cultivation. His true cultivation had actually reached the terrifying 9th stage Desolate Supremacy Great Perfection Stage 9 Desolate Supremacy, that was a half-step Heavenly Tao level existence. It was the same cultivation realm as the Void Giant Tortoise that wreaked havoc on the entire right bank of the Milky Way. Even if he was far from the Void Giant Tortoise's fierce reputation, his cultivation strength was not fake. It was clearly there, and it was not something they could resist. Right because of this, the old pig demon had killed 2 devil antelopes in a short span of a few breaths. When he had scared away the third devil antelope, he had used his divine sense to search the void. Only then did the 8 old fellows suddenly realize what was going on. Like birds that were startled by the twang of a bow, they hastily retreated to the forbidden land behind them. Yes, although they came back, the old pig spirit with terrifying cultivation strength did not chase after them. However, this was after all a half-step heavenly Tao at the peak of the desolate Venerable's great circle. Now that he had arrived with a mighty army, it seemed that he was going to enter the demonic antelope forbidden land, thinking that the demonic antelope forbidden land, which was adjacent to their own nest, would have a terrifying half-step heavenly Tao in it, whether it was the 4 howling space demon hounds in the Seacombe forbidden land or the 4 beautiful colored pythons in the mist forbidden land. All of them could not sit still in an instant. Without much hesitation, after a brief moment of contemplation, the 8 desolate Zune monsters in the 2 forbidden lands quickly activated some kind of secret technique. They established a connection and secretly discussed a plan to deal with this in secret, and all of this, the old pig spirit, who had not yet entered the demonic antelope forbidden land, obviously could not know. Here at this moment, as the divine sense was fully extended, but in the end, the search was fruitless. Feeling very depressed, he glanced at the owl who was fighting with the black-robed desolate venerables. He snorted coldly, shook his shoulders, and instantly teleported away. Chapter 50-34. On the right side of the void, the black-robed desolate supremacy was still fighting with the demonic antelope forbidden ground owl. After all, this was a life-and-death battle between old monsters like the desolate supremacy. The aura was intense and the scene was extremely shocking. The aura of the void within a radius of 10 billion miles was in chaos. The battlefield was shrouded in chaotic and violent energy. The black-robed desolate supremacy and owl's figures could no longer be seen. The black-robed desolate supremacy and owl, who were fighting, ignored everything happening in the outside world. They were completely focused on their opponent. Both of them were rank 2 desolate supremacies. Their cultivation levels were on par with each other. It could be said that they were evenly matched. As for Owl, he was a space beast, while the black-robed desolate supremacy was a remnant of the primordial era. In this primordial void, space beasts and remnant of the primordial era were mortal enemies. Both of them were on par with each other in terms of cultivation level. Yet, they were naturally opposing existences. When this battle began, it was natural for the world to turn dark. As such, how could they have the time to care about anything happening in the outside world? Of course, there was another reason. Both of them were extremely confident in the other battle. The black-robed desolate supremacy did not need to be mentioned. He knew Pig Spirit's cultivation level very well. He was a rank 9 desolate supremacy, so dealing with the 3-headed antelope would not be a problem. Owl was certain that Pig Spirit was only a rank 3 desolate supremacy. He was definitely not a match for the 3-headed devil antelope. And what he needed to do was to use all his strength to hold back the opponent in front of him, preventing him from taking the opportunity to escape. From his point of view, the 3 antelopes would quickly kill the black-robed pig. When that happened, they would turn around and attack the black-robed remnant desolate supremacy. The final result was obvious. The other party would not be able to hold on for long. In a short period of time, he would be completely killed. No. Owl never expected that the other battle had already ended. Of the 3 antelopes, 2 had died and 1 had fled. In just a few seconds, they were finished off by the black-robed pig that he did not think highly of. Whoosh! An extremely sharp sound broke through the air. With a teleport, old Pig Spirit arrived at the place where the black-robed desolate supremacy and Owl were fighting. At this time, his body had shrunk to about 10 million miles, but his cultivation strength did not change. He was still a peak desolate supremacy at the great perfection of rank 9, which was also a half-step heavenly way. The reason for this was because Yi Xian had already imparted the blood technique to him. It was just that the old man had yet to fully comprehend the power of the blood sea technique. Otherwise, like Yi Xian, he could also create 3 blood sea avatars of the same cultivation level. But that was obviously a matter for the future. For now, the blood cease secret technique could only allow him to change the size of his body at will without being affected by the demonic pig 9 transformations bloodline secret technique. Before the arrival of the old pig spirit, the owl didn't feel that something was wrong. He didn't extend his divine sense and focused on the battle in front of him. But now, with the arrival of the old pig spirit, the aura of the old pig spirit's cultivation base spread out. The owl instantly felt that something was wrong. Its body shook violently, and it turned to look at the old pig spirit. His expression changed drastically as he exclaimed in shock, "Ninth stage perfection? This is impossible." Rumble, bam. The old pig spirit was not interested in talking nonsense with him at all. He did not hesitate at all. As his figure appeared silently, his pair of big black pig trotters stretched out from the void at the first moment. With a thunderous rumble, the pair of big black hooves ruthlessly smashed down, and in the blink of an eye, they had already landed on the owl's head. What happened next was obviously without any suspense. With a huge explosion, the owl's entire body exploded on the spot, and in the blink of an eye, it turned into a rapidly spreading scarlet mist of blood. Whoosh! The old pig spirit also waved his hand at the first moment, and an incomparably majestic and invisible force swept out from his body. In the blink of an eye, it enveloped a radius of 10,000 miles, and all the blood mist that had just spread out was swept up by him and absorbed into his body. At this point, the 4 desolate elders in the Devil Antelope Forbidden Land had all been dealt with. 3 had died and 1 had fled. The old pig spirit had also obtained 3 clouds of blood mist formed by the explosion of the desolate elder's body. When he returned and handed them over to Yi Xian for refinement, he would be able to obtain 3 desolate elder blood essences in an instant. Just based on this point, today's harvest was incomparably huge. This made the old man extremely satisfied, and he was simply complacent. No. Although the 4 desolate elder monsters had been dealt with, the battle was not over yet. This time, the old pig spirit had brought the entire Magic Hall's 6 legions here. His goal was not just to hunt the desolate elder level star beasts. It was just a matter of convenience. His goal was to snatch a star domain on the right bank of the Milky Way for the Demon Palace's army to reside in. He would establish a foothold here and slowly expand. The Devil Antelope Forbidden Land was the best target. Although there were still a large number of star beasts living in the Forbidden Land, the Magic Hall's army behind them was not to be trifled with. Once the 6 legions entered the Devil Antelope Forbidden Land, they would immediately begin a bloody sweep through the void. In the entire all the star beasts living in the Devil Antelope Forbidden Land would either submit to the Magic Hall's army or die. For all of this, the old pig spirit and the black-robed desolate elder would not take action again. This was because to the countless experts in the Magic Hall's 6 legions, this kind of battle was also an opportunity to train themselves. If a void expert wanted to quickly grow, there was no better shortcut. The only way was to experience a great battle and use blood and fire to baptize themselves. However, in the void ahead, there were close to 10 primordial experts from the Devil Antelope Forbidden Land. They had rushed out previously, but were caught off guard by the demon race's war barbaric army and killed a few of them. Now, the remaining survivors were like stray dogs, fleeing towards the Devil Antelope Forbidden Land. After all, they were primordial experts. Furthermore, they were now clenching their teeth and fleeing for their lives. If the old pig spirit and the black-robed desolate elder did not take action, they would have escaped very quickly, and it would be difficult to track them down. Now that the Magic Hall had a huge business, the cultivation of the higher-ups in the 6 legions were also rapidly increasing. Soon, they would need a batch of level 29 desolate sovereign pills. Although Yi Xian still had some in stock, he was obviously unable to supply all of them. Therefore, the primordial experts that should be killed still had to be killed. They were the main ingredients for refining level 29 desolate sovereign pills. As these thoughts flashed through his mind, the old pig spirit's eyes flashed coldly. He raised his head and let out a shocking roar. Even at this time, you still want to escape? Don't you think you are too naive? Xiao! Before the roar had died down, the old pig spirit and the black-robed desolate elder had disappeared from their original positions. In less than half a breath's time, they were already tens of billions of miles away in the void of the universe, blocking the escape route of the 10 primordial experts. Roar. Screech. Screech. The group of primordial experts stopped abruptly. Their eyes were filled with anger, but their faces were filled with despair. They raised their heads and roared with endless unwillingness. Chapter 50-35. Howl. Hiss. 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 As their bodies stopped moving, the eyes of the group of primordial era great beings were filled with anger, but their faces were filled with despair. They raised their heads and roared, unwilling to give up. Unwilling to give up. Unfortunately, it won't change anything. Hong. Long. Long. Pung. 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 The pig spirit let out a mocking divine sense. It stood up on its hind legs and its pair of black pig hooves immediately reached out from the void and viciously smashed down. Just like that, the pig spirit, even though it was just an attack, there was still a shocking rumble of thunder. The big black hooves smashed down, and in the blink of an eye, a formless and terrifying force was emitted, shrouding the group of primordial era great beings in the void space in front of them. They were firmly bound and couldn't break free. He was very satisfied with the result. With a huge explosion, the group of primordial era great beings exploded on the spot, and in the blink of an eye, they turned into a cloud of blood mist and quickly spread out. Shio! These were 2-level, 29 desolate night pills, so he couldn't waste them. Pig Spirit muttered to himself. He immediately waved his hand, and an incomparably majestic invisible force swept out from his body. In the blink of an eye, it covered an area of 5,000 miles and sucked in all the blood mist that had just spread out. After compressing it into a blood ball of about 1,000 feet, he immediately put it into his body. Howl. 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 Hong. Long. Long. Almost in the next moment, there was an earth-shattering roar of ferocious beasts coming from the army of Magic Hall behind them. There were also countless rumbling sounds of various types of battleships and remaining battleships resounding throughout the entire void space. All the desolate night-old monsters and primordial era great beings in Demon Antelope Forbidden Land had been dealt with. Next, it was time for the army behind to attack the Forbidden Land star domain. However, although all the desolate night-old monsters and primordial era great beings had been wiped out, Demon Antelope Forbidden Land was, after all, a supreme forbidden land that had been stable on the right bank of the Milky Way for many years. There were bound to be many universe knights, universe masters, and universe supreme beings below the level of great beings. If a battleship army were to attack such beings, although it could kill them, it would also cause a lot of damage. There were various levels of space warriors within the palace army. The upper echelons of the 6 armies all rushed out from their respective flagship star fortresses. They were in charge of dealing with the 3 universe-level Demon Antelope Forbidden Land's ferocious beast upper echelons. On the beast army's side, Commander Blue Ox, Yu Linglong, Dragon Centipede, Gong Jun, Black Wind Tiger, Howling Moon Mastiff, and the others all rushed out, leading hundreds of millions of ferocious beasts in the army to charge forward. Among the commanders of the remnant army, the black-robed desolate supremacy did not make a move, but the 9 supreme beings of the remnant army had all appeared. Zhao Dong, Qian Nan, Sun Shi, Li Bei, and the rest had also led hundreds of billions of remnant experts in the army. Tens of billions of battleships had also rushed out. In this battle, the powerful experts of the remnant army would not easily take action, but they would pay attention to the entire starry sky battlefield and come to their aid at any time. If any of the upper echelons of the major legions on their side were in danger, they would definitely rescue them immediately. Although this kind of starry sky blood battle was also a kind of training, but they only wanted a baptism of blood and fire, not a true loss of soldiers and generals. The training should be limited. On the nomadic army's side, Commander Three-Clawed Flood Dragon, Long Shan Tang, and the other members of the council who were originally captives all rushed out. This army not only had a large number of soldiers, but they were all elites. The battleships were all huge fortresses with a diameter of 100,000 meters, totaling 50 million. There were also some star fortresses that were later captured from the Tianji clan and the Human Federation. Captives, the commanders of the invasion army, which were the upper echelons of the Blood Flood Dragon, Green Rock, and Battle Lion races, also showed themselves. Among them, there were many powerful beings of the primordial era, including the Blood Flood Dragon ancestor and Green Rock ancestor. They also followed behind, not intending to participate in the battle. The 10,000 Evil Army was the most ferocious. Their commanders, the immemorial Porcupine and the immemorial Hairy Tortoise, led the entire army as if they had just been injected with chicken blood. They roared and charged forward. The former already had the strength of a desolate venerable under the demonic pig's 9 transformations bloodline ability, while the latter was already a powerful being of the primordial era. In this battle, they clearly would not participate too much. At most, they could not help but casually kill a few people they did not like to see eye to eye. The upper echelons of the Heavenly River Army were the weakest among the 6 armies. In a starry sky battle of this level, what they needed was the baptism and tempering of blood and fire. Therefore, the commanders of the army, including Old Devil Mosquito Butcher, Naples, Demon King Mo Wen Tian, Demon King Imperial Uncle, Dark Turtle Tribe Patriarch Mingjiu, Mad Mosquito Emperor, Old Man Shenyuan, Old Man Duanmu, Abbess Bodhi, and the other upper echelons of small and idle factions and families, without exception, all rushed out of their flagship fortresses and star fortresses. This included the Demon Tribe with the War Barbaric Army, Yi Xian's Heavenly River Army and Victorious Return Army, as well as the upper echelons of the Dark Turtle Tribe and Blood Mosquito Beasts. The entire army. The Heavenly River Army was extremely large. It was made up of many tribes and occupied a large part of the void, stretching as far as the eye could see. Now, under the leadership of the upper echelons of the army, they rushed out at the same time, like a raging river in the void, surging forward. The forbidden land of the antelope was originally not far away, more than 100 billion miles ahead. The 6 armies advanced together and soon charged into the forbidden land of the antelope. Roar. Ruthless, rumble. At this moment, endless roars and howls could be heard, and the roar of the cannons of the battleships resounded in the void, not stopping for a moment. True, the starry sky slaughter had begun. Although the old pig demon did not intend to kill all the ferocious beasts in the forbidden land of the antelope and turn this place into a dead zone, now that the magic hall had just arrived and this was the first battle of the flag ceremony, if he was too gentle, it would obviously not have the effect of deterrence. This, on the contrary, it was not good. There would be a lot of problems and trouble in the future. Therefore, even if the countless ferocious beasts in the forbidden land of the antelope did not resist and were willing to submit, the slaughter would still begin. Even if not half of all the ferocious beasts in the forbidden land of the antelope were killed, at least 1/3 of them would be eliminated. The battle was too tragic. The entire forbidden land of the antelope was vast and boundless. There were a lot of abandoned planets that had been moved by powerful people in ancient times, and there were countless ferocious beasts living on them. But, now, with the arrival of the Magic Hall, the 6 armies had launched an all-out attack. The forbidden land of the antelope was destined to change hands today. After this battle, the antelope would no longer be around, and the mysterious Magic Hall would appear on the right bank of the Milky Way, occupying this forbidden land of the star. The battle lasted for a long time. After a full 10 days, more than 1/3 of the countless ferocious beasts in the forbidden land of the star finally fell. The old pig demon, who was standing at the edge of the star domain, nodded. The voice of his divine sense instantly spread out, and could be heard clearly in the hundreds of billions of miles of void. From this moment on, the forbidden land of the antelope will change hands. The Magic Hall will appear. Awoo. M. Chapter 5036. Roar. Screech. Screech, screech, screech. As the old pig demon's divine sense voice spread out, countless roars came from the abandoned planets that had been moved here since ancient times and from the nearby planets. It was as if they were responding to the old pig demon's divine sense voice. These roars were clearly filled with endless joy and surprise. Face against the powerful Magic Hall army, especially the old pig spirit, the black-robed desolate sovereign, and the primordial porcupine who also had the battle strength of a desolate sovereign, as well as the powerful experts from the 6 armies of the Magic Hall. they had no power to resist and were prepared to submit from the start. Nothing was better than being alive. Unfortunately, the old pig spirit wanted a bloody massacre that could bring about a certain degree of deterrence. Therefore, the demonic antelope forbidden land had to have a large number of beasts die. Now, everything had come to an end. All of the beasts in the forbidden land prostrated themselves in the void, expressing their submission. The 6 armies of the magic hall also stopped at this moment, no longer slaughtering. From this moment onwards, the demonic antelope forbidden land had become a historical name. The one who occupied this star field was the mysterious magic hall, a powerful foreign force that had appeared overnight on the right bank of the Milky Way. There was still a lot of work to be done, such as cleaning up the battlefield, distribution of prisoners, the division of the 6 armies' garrisons in the star field, as well as the subsequent arrival of the Magic Hall army and so on. Everything was very complicated, but the higher-ups of the various armies were responsible for it. Everything was carried out in an orderly manner. As for the old pig spirit, his divine sense swept through the entire demonic antelope forbidden land. After confirming that there were no problems, he withdrew his thoughts from the star field that was still in chaos. The black-robed desolate sovereign and the primordial porcupine, who also had the battle strength of a desolate sovereign, were left behind. As for the old pig spirit, he directly rushed out of the star field. Everything in the demonic antelope forbidden land had been settled, but for the Magic Hall army, there was still one more thing they had to do before they could successfully take over this star domain and establish a stable foothold in the future. That was to get in touch with the other forbidden lands and star regions around the forbidden lands and get them to acknowledge the status of the Magic Hall. At the very least, the 2 forbidden lands on the left and right of the forbidden lands had to acknowledge the ownership of the Magic Hall. Otherwise, a new war could come at any time. In fact, when the 6 legions of the Magic Hall rushed into the Forbidden Lands and started a bloody massacre, countless ferocious beasts in the Forbidden Lands of Shia and Forbidden Lands of Seacombe were closely watching everything unfold. No over time, whether it was the 4 beautiful rainbow pythons in the Forbidden Lands of Shia or the 4 howling space demon hounds in the Forbidden Lands of Seacombe, they did not show up. Instead, they were hibernating in the inner void at the edge of the Forbidden Lands, quietly watching. The old pig spirit's sudden appearance surprised the 8 old fellows who were hibernating in the void on the left and right of the demonic antelope forbidden land. However, what they did not expect was that this seemingly inconspicuous, and even somewhat annoying, black-skinned old pig not only hid his cultivation level, but also his perfect 9th stage desolate sovereign strength had reached such a terrifying level. This was definitely a true half-step heavenly Tao level existence. Not only was his cultivation level the same as the giant void tortoise that wreaked havoc on the right bank of the Milky Way, but his methods were also incomparably ruthless. Oh my God! Perhaps this black pig was far from the giant void tortoise's ferocious reputation that had been passed down since ancient times. However, in a short period of time, he had eliminated all the desolate sovereigns and powerful beings in the demonic antelope forbidden land, proving his cultivation level and strength. As for the purpose of this mysterious foreign army, it was now obvious. They wanted to exterminate the demonic antelope forbidden land, seize the forbidden land star area, and occupy the nest of the birds. Regarding this, although the 8 desolate sovereigns in the forbidden land of rosy clouds and the forbidden land of rosy clouds were unwilling, there was nothing they could do. The half-step heavenly Tao level black pig was too strong, definitely not something they could resist. When the old pig spirit consecutively killed 2 demonic antelopes in a short period of time and scared off the 3rd one, he spread out his divine sense to search the void. These 8 old fellows suddenly woke up and hurriedly retreated to the forbidden land behind them like birds startled by the twang of a bow. However, they did not stop there. They secretly contacted each other, and at the same time, paid close attention to the follow-up movements of this foreign army. What happened next made the 8 desolate sovereigns even more shocked. Because when the army of the Magic Hall rushed into the Forbidden Land star area, the countless beasts in the Forbidden Land of Primordial Devil Antelope Forbidden Land had already prostrated themselves in the void, trembling. This was clearly the rhythm of submission. He may have been unwilling, angry, but at that time, in the entire Forbidden Land star area, there was not even a single Primordial Era expert. Facing such a huge invasion army, and the high-level battle strength was not only Primordial Era experts, but also desolate sovereigns, and the strongest was even a half-step heavenly Tao level expert at the great perfection of the 9th stage. In such a huge Forbidden Land star area, countless beasts in the Forbidden Land did not even dare to think of resisting. But, even so, the moment the Black Pig led its army into the Forbidden Star field, it immediately started a bloody massacre. From the very beginning, this Black Pig led its army into the Forbidden Star zone. From that moment on, endless roars and howls drowned the entire Forbidden Land of primordial devil antelope. Countless beasts in the Forbidden Land were forced to fight in grief and indignation, and the roar of the cannons of the battleships resounded in the void, not stopping for a single second. This was a real slaughter in the starry sky. Looking at the situation, the old pig spirit clearly intended to kill all the beasts in the Forbidden Land of primordial devil antelope, completely turning this place into a dead zone. This scene made the 8 desolate sovereigns in the Forbidden Land of Xiaya and the Forbidden Land of Sikong feel as if they had fallen into an ice cave. Suddenly, there was such a terrifying existence beside their lair, and its temperament and methods were even more ruthless and cruel, which made them worried. After a full 10 days, when more than a third of the countless beasts in the Forbidden Land of primordial devil antelope star area had died, the slaughter stopped. The old pig spirit, who was standing at the edge of the star area, nodded, and the voice of his divine sense instantly spread out, covering hundreds of billions of miles of the void, announcing that from this moment on, the Forbidden Land of primordial devil antelope had changed hands. The magic hall had appeared. It was also at this moment that the 8 desolate sovereigns finally realized the purpose of the old pig spirit. This slaughter was originally just to intimidate, but it was completely a demonstration of power. Before they could recover, after the bloody slaughter in the Forbidden Land of primordial devil antelope star area, the old pig spirit, who had been secretly watched by them, immediately rushed out of the Forbidden Land of Sikong and rushed to the edge of the Forbidden Land of Sikong on the right. This scene caught the 4 desolate sovereign howling space demon hounds in the Forbidden Land of Sikong off guard. They were so scared that their faces turned pale, and they immediately made a decision to use a secret method to communicate with the 4 starry sky-colored pythons in the Forbidden Land of Xiaya. As soon as all this was over, in the void outside the Forbidden Land of Sikong, there was a trembling divine sense voice. I am the pig tyrant of the magic hall. I have just arrived here, and I specially came to visit you. Chapter 50-37. I'm pig tyrant of the magic hall. I'm here for the first time, and I'm here to visit you. On this side, the moment the 4 howling space magical hounds in the roaring space Forbidden Land finished their sound transmissions to the 4 starry sky-colored pythons in the roaring space Forbidden Land with a secret method, a heart-shaking voice of divine sense came from the void outside the roaring space Forbidden Land. That the black-skinned old pig, whose strength had reached the peak of the 9th order great perfection, which was the half-step heavenly Tao realm existence, had just taken down the demonic antelope Forbidden Land, and it actually came to the door immediately. Let the 4 howling void demon hounds in the Shao Kong Forbidden Land were caught off guard. They were so scared that their faces turned pale. They looked at each other with a bitter expression on their faces. That was, compared to the demonic antelope Forbidden Land that had just been destroyed, the Xia Hei's Forbidden Land and the Shao Kong Forbidden Land were stronger. This was because the strongest of the 4 desolate ancestor old monsters in these 2 forbidden lands was the 6th order desolate ancestor. Distance the late-stage desolate ancestor was not far from the 7th order desolate ancestor. Even so, in the face of a half-step heavenly Tao realm at the 9th order great perfection, whether it was the Xia Hei's Forbidden Land or the Shao Kong Forbidden Land, they were absolutely no match for it. Only 4 desolate ancestor old monsters could not threaten the existence of a 9th order desolate ancestor. If 8 desolate ancestor old monsters gathered together, they might be able to make the other party a little wary. It was precisely considering this point that the 4 desolate ancestor old monsters in the Shao Kong Forbidden Land transmitted to the 4 starry sky-colored pythons in the Xia Hei's Forbidden Land. They planned to join forces to trap this cruel black-skinned pig monster, so that they would not be on tenterhooks every day in the future. This was obviously risky, but now they had no choice. The other party took the initiative to come to them, which was obviously forcing them to do something beyond their ability. These thoughts flashed through their minds, and the 4 old guys changed into the appearance of the remnant people. They were all black-robed old men, and their figures flashed, and they went to the edge of the Shao Kong Forbidden Land. The reason for this was that the black-skinned old pig waiting outside the Forbidden Land star area had now turned into the appearance of a remnant person. It was a burly man, with dark skin, and he looked very wild. The other party turned into a remnant person, so they had to follow suit. Shio! Swish, swish, swish. Soon, the 4 desolate Zun old monsters of Shao Kong Forbidden Land rushed out from the Forbidden Land star field and stopped abruptly at the edge of the Forbidden Land star field, about 10 million miles away from the old pig spirit who had transformed into a black-faced man. After exchanging glances with each other, they all put on smiles and cupped their fists at pig spirit, imitating the manner of the survivors. It was the first time they had met each other. Fellow Taoists, I am Pig Tyrant from the Magic Hall. This is the first time I've come here, so I specially came to pay you a visit. I hope I didn't disturb your cultivation. Seeing that the 4 of them had come together, and just like him, in order to show that they were not hostile, Old Pig deliberately changed their ferocious beast forms into the form of survivors that were easier to communicate with. Old Pig carefully relaxed and immediately smiled. Towards the 4 black-robed old monsters standing in the void thousands of miles away, he cupped his fists and said, "From today on, the Forbidden Land star field over there will be my magic hall guarding it. We will be neighbors in the future, so we should keep in touch with each other." Halfway through, he seemed to suddenly think of something, and he changed the topic. "Oh right, I don't know the name of the Forbidden Land star field where the 4 of you are guarding. Also, in the Forbidden Land star field on the left side of the magic hall, I have also sensed the aura of the 4 desolate Zun friends. What is the name of that place?" Seeing him being so polite, the 4 black-robed old monsters transformed by the howling celestial demon hound were all stunned. They opened their mouths slightly, but there was a hint of suspicion in their eyes. They subconsciously exchanged glances again. However, although they were extremely suspicious of Old Pig Spirit's politeness in their hearts, since he was so polite on the surface, they naturally didn't dare to be too negligent. So after exchanging glances, they immediately continued to introduce the general situation of the 2 forbidden areas to Old Pig Spirit. "Master Pig Tyrant, the Forbidden Land star field behind the 4 of us is called the Howling Sky Forbidden Land, and the 4 of us are all howling celestial demon hounds. What you said is right. In the Forbidden Land star field on the left, there are also 4 desolate ancient supremes guarding it. The Forbidden Land star field is called the Red Mist Forbidden Land, and the 4 desolate ancient monsters in the Red Mist Forbidden Land are all a kind of starry sky giant python. To be precise, it should be the colorful python, and this kind of colorful python is a single reproduction, so all the colorful pythons are female. The reason why the Forbidden Land is called the Red Mist Forbidden Land is because when this kind of colorful python breathes in the void, there is always a colorful light floating, like a dense fog, which is very beautiful, so it is called the Red Mist Forbidden Land. However, perhaps because they feel that the appearance of their colorful python is too shocking, all the colorful pythons in the Red Mist Forbidden Land will transform into the appearance of the survivors. Delicate and beautiful. If you don't know the details and enter, you will think that you have entered a star field full of peerless beauties. Oh? The whole Red Mist Forbidden Land is full of peerless beauties? Hearing this, Old Pig Spirit's eyes lit up, and his face also showed a happy expression. He exclaimed softly, "It seems that this time I really chose the right place, this old pig. I have good luck with women." This old guy was learning from Yi Xian in everything. After knowing that Yi Xian made a magic hall and named himself the master of the magic hall, he clamored for a more domineering title. That was how the Pig Tyrant of the magic hall came about. No. In his opinion, although his title as the Pig Tyrant of the Magic Hall was more domineering than Yi Xian's Master of the Magic Hall, if the 2 of them went out at the same time, he still couldn't compare to Yi Xian in some aspects. Yi Xian had the demonic dragon as his mount, as well as 7 delicate and beautiful cultivators from the primordial era accompanying him. The moment he walked out, it was as if he had a halo around him, causing him to be extremely envious. Class Old Pig Spirit had been collecting all kinds of rare metals and forging materials in the starry sky like the magic dragon Imperial Chariot, and now that he had collected almost all of them, he was preparing to build one soon. It must be more domineering and flashy than Yi Xian's magic dragon Imperial Chariot. But with such a domineering chariot, he couldn't be all alone, right? If he didn't get some beauties to serve him, he would be too ashamed to go out. Old Pig Spirit had been thinking about this matter, but he had never met a female cultivator with the blood of a pig beast, so he put it aside. Now when he heard that the red mist forbidden land was full of beautiful female cultivators transformed from starry sky-colored pythons, he was naturally overjoyed. Although it was a bit of a fly in the ointment to say that these starry sky-colored pythons didn't have the blood of a pig beast, but as long as they were female cultivators, it was fine. He would get some to serve him for the time being, and after he finished refining the flying one, he would go out and look for female cultivators with the blood of a pig beast. Saying in a word, it was completely possible to find a horse while riding a donkey. Chapter 5038. Hearing the old pig spirit's words, especially when he heard that the forbidden land was full of beautiful female cultivators, even his eyes lit up instantly. The 4 black-robed old monsters transformed by the howling space demon hounds in the forbidden land were stunned at the same time. Immediately after, they exchanged glances with each other with strange expressions on their faces. In the depths of their eyes, there was clearly a hint of joy that quickly flashed away. They were worried that the 4 starry sky-colored pythons in the forbidden land would not cooperate and join forces to deal with this old pig spirit with terrifying cultivation base. But now, it seemed that this problem was no longer a concern. The heavens are simply helping me. I never expected that this black-skinned pig would actually be so lecherous. In this way, so long as I take him around the forbidden area of Sunglow, this fellow will definitely be unable to move his feet. Even if he doesn't do anything disgraceful on the spot, he'll definitely be able to find all sorts of excuses to stay in the forbidden area of Sunglow. In this way, with the intelligence of the 4 starry sky-colored pythons in the forbidden land, they could naturally see the dirty thoughts in this old pig spirit's heart at a glance. Under shame and anger, they would probably join forces to deal with this old pig without any persuasion. They would take the initiative to facilitate it, even if the 8 desolate venerable old monsters joined forces to deal with this lecherous old pig spirit, they would probably still not be able to do anything to him. The peak of the desolate venerable and the great perfection of the 9th stage was too powerful. It was a half-step heavenly path existence. Even if the desolate venerable old monsters of the same realm were not all in the late stage, but only in the early or middle stage, it would be meaningless no matter how many of them there were. Although he couldn't beat it in a fight, he had no problem trapping and sealing this old black pig. It was impossible for this to happen anywhere else, unless it was like the starry sky berserk ape that had wreaked havoc on the right bank of the Milky Way and made people panic, and had a primordial treasure like the farmer god Cauldron. But obviously, whether it was the 4 of them or the 4 starry sky-colored pythons in the forbidden land, they obviously didn't have such a level of desolate era-level treasure. But, even so, as long as he could lure this damnable black pig into the depths of the forbidden area and set up a trap, he would still be able to trap it there. This was the key reason why the 4 of them were worried about the 4 starry sky-colored pythons in the forbidden land of dawn mist and refused to work together to seal the old black pig. 'Cause in order to accomplish this, they had to utilize a special place within the forbidden area of sunrise. Once they utilized this place, they would be unable to enter it again, otherwise, they would collide with the pig demon that was trapped within the forbidden area of sunrise and bring calamity upon themselves. In other words, utilizing the strange place within the restricted area of Sunglow to trap and seal pig spirit was more harmful than beneficial to the 4 starry sky pythons. So, unless they were forced to a certain extent, it was very difficult for them to grit their teeth and agree. That was in the past, yet it wasn't a problem now. This damnable black pig had ill intentions and had come here with filthy intentions, so the 4 starry sky-colored pythons in the forbidden area would definitely be unable to endure it, and they could only grit their teeth and choose to seal him up. Otherwise, they would be humiliated at will. After all, this was a pig, and it was even a black pig. It was simply ugly to the point of being disgusting. Moreover, the starry sky-colored python clan loved beautiful things, so they would absolutely not submit to the pig demon's appearance alone. All of this took a long time to describe, yet all of these thoughts had actually flashed swiftly through the minds of the 4 of them. With merely a single exchange of glances, the 4 black-robed old freaks had understood the intentions of the others, and they seemed to have reached a tacit understanding in an instant. After exchanging glances once more, the smiles on their faces instantly became even more brilliant, and then they cupped their fists and bowed to the pig demon before continuing to speak. Their words clearly revealed a wisp of dense bewitchment that couldn't be dispersed. It seems that fellow Daoist tyrant pig is also a romantic person. That's just right. If that's the case, then the forbidden area is definitely an extremely wonderful place for fellow Daoist. It's said that a fair and virtuous woman is a good match for a gentleman. Fellow Daoist's cultivation strength is astonishing. You're already at the peak of the desolate supremacy at the 9th step, which is also half a step into the heavenly Tao realm. You're already half a step into the heavenly Tao realm, so you should naturally live a carefree life. It's really enviable. Yes, 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 all of the starry sky-colored pythons in the forbidden area are female cultivators, and they usually like to transform into the appearance of survivors. All of them have different styles. There are countless beautiful female cultivators in the forbidden area, and there must be one that you desire. Furthermore, all of the starry sky-colored pythons have their own unique fragrance. When they transform into beauties, they're a feast for the eyes, and their unique fragrance assails the nose. That's simply endless enjoyment. Fellow Daoist just said that we'll be neighbors in the future. Since we're neighbors, we should naturally be more friendly and often interact with each other. It just so happens that the four of us haven't been to the forbidden area for some time. Since we're in the mood today, why don't we go together with fellow Daoist tyrant pig? Maybe we can even be matchmakers on the spot and facilitate 1 or 2 beautiful marriages for fellow Daoist, and bring back a few Daoist companions that you like. Needless to say, the words and attitudes of these 4 old guys were obviously a little too enthusiastic at this time. But old pig's spirit didn't think too much about it. One, in terms of his cultivation strength, even if the other party had any tricks, he didn't care at all. He could take advantage of the situation to turn hostile and give the other party a show of strength or something. What's more, in his opinion, the reason why these 4 old guys were so patient was clearly to lead him away from the forbidden area. They didn't dare to let him enter the rhythm of their nest, which was understandable. Yes. They wanted to use the starry sky pythons that had transformed into beautiful female cultivators in the forbidden area of rosy mist to be generous and use this method to curry favor with me. However, no matter what the reason behind this was, it was obvious that he had to make a trip to the forbidden land of dusk. In old pig spirit's opinion, even if he transformed into the appearance of the remnant and transformed into a burly man with a black face, he was still so extraordinary and domineering. Just based on this point, as long as he went back to the forbidden area, wouldn't the countless beautiful female cultivators transformed by the starry sky-colored pythons in the forbidden area all be fascinated and lose their souls on the spot? At that time, there would be countless beauties around him, and he could choose whatever he wanted. Ha ha ha, fellow Daoists, I'm a little embarrassed by your kind intentions. However, you're right. This pig is very fond of beautiful women. Since the forbidden area is such a wonderful place, wouldn't it be a pity if I don't go there? The old pig spirit raised his head and laughed heartily. Halfway through his sentence, he waved his hand and nodded his head. Then, I will have to trouble you 4 to lead the way. I will follow behind you in case a stranger suddenly appears and frightens others. Chapter 5039. The Forbidden Land of Red Mist. Like the Shao Kong Forbidden Land, the Forbidden Land of Red Mist also had 4 desolate venerable old monsters. Moreover, these 4 desolate venerable old monsters were all a kind of starry sky python. Quasi to be exact, all the starry sky ferocious beasts in the forbidden land of red mist were a kind of colored python. Moreover, this kind of colored python reproduced singly. Therefore, all the colored pythons in the forbidden land were female. The reason why the forbidden land was named so was because this kind of colored python would always emit a colorful light when it breathed in and out in the void. It was like a dense fog, which was very beautiful. And moreover, perhaps because they felt that the appearance of their colored python was too frightening, all the colored pythons in the forbidden land of red mist would usually transform into the appearance of the survivors. Originally, they were all female colored pythons. When they transformed into the appearance of the survivors, they were naturally all delicate and beautiful women. Even on the surface of the abandoned stars in the forbidden land of red mist, there were a large number of buildings suitable for the survivors to live in. If those who entered without knowing the details would most likely think that they had entered a remnant star area full of stunning beauties. In short, the entire forbidden land of red mist was full of singing and dancing life. These colored pythons had beautiful appearances and liked beautiful things, so the entire forbidden land of red mist was extremely beautiful. But these days, the originally peaceful forbidden land of red mist was shrouded in a layer of gloomy clouds, and there was an incomparably oppressive aura in the void. The reason for this was naturally because of everything in the demonic antelope forbidden land adjacent to the right. Although the overall strength of the demonic antelope forbidden land was weaker than the forbidden land of red mist and the Shao Kong forbidden land, the difference was extremely limited. But, just these days, the entire demonic antelope forbidden land was experiencing a real starry sky massacre. This incomparably huge army of outsiders suddenly invaded here, and in a short period of time, they killed all 4 desolate venerable old monsters and dozens of desolate antiquity experts in the forbidden land of red mist. This was not the end. After wiping out the entire upper echelon of the forbidden land of red mist, this army actually rushed into the star field of the demonic antelope forbidden land. Look! From the looks of it, the black-skinned old pig clearly intended to kill all the beasts in the forbidden ground, turning it into a land of death. This scene made the countless starry sky-colored pythons in the forbidden area of sunrise feel as if they had fallen into an ice cave. An existence with such a terrifying cultivation base, temperament, and methods had suddenly appeared right next to their lair. Anyone would be deeply worried about it, compared to the ruthlessness and brutality of the army of outsiders. The starry sky-colored python, who had always been fond of beautiful things, was almost like a weak little lamb. If he really lived with them for a long time, wouldn't he have to live in fear every day in the future? The countless starry sky-colored pythons in the forbidden land of dawn mist paid close attention to the bloody slaughter in the devil antelope forbidden land. An entire 10 days later, when more than a third of the countless ferocious beasts in the entire devil antelope forbidden area had perished, this slaughter finally stopped. At this moment, the forbidden area of Sunglow was already filled with the howling of the wind. Some of the starry sky-colored pythons were stunned by this terrifying and ruthless method. They felt as if they were sitting on a carpet of needles, unable to calm down. In the center of the forbidden area of Sunglow was a huge abandoned star. Although it was an abandoned star, after many years of careful construction, this star now had a lot of vitality. Not only did it have an ocean, but it also had a green vegetation covering it. This was extremely rare on the right bank of the Milky Way. Silver in the right bank of the river, there were a large number of abandoned planets that were piled up in the most powerful forbidden lands and stellar regions. In fact, they were all moved here from other parts of the primordial void by the almighty existences of the forbidden lands. After all, they had been guarding the right bank of the Milky Way all this time, and they did not know when the Milky Way star domain would be fully opened and they would be able to enter. Therefore, this time must have been very long, and those who came early had been guarding here for countless years. Total, they could not be lying in the void all the time, right? That was why those almighty existences had continuously moved a large number of abandoned planets from other parts of the primordial void to this place. That was why the planets in the most powerful forbidden lands and the most powerful stellar regions on the right bank of the Milky Way were so densely packed together. No, because in the primordial void, apart from the source hive star that still had life, all the other stars had already experienced the passage of countless years and had long since entered the primordial void. Like the gigantic planet at the center of the forbidden land of sunrise had green vegetation. While it might not be unique, it was not far from it. Only the colored python clan would have the patience to carefully take care of a planet that had long since entered the brink of death, allowing it to regain some vitality. However, this was not the case. Such a star that was brimming with vitality was obviously not something that could be taken care of in a short period of time. Even in the entire restricted area of Sunglow, there was only one such star. Where therefore, the 4 desolate supremacy of the starry sky-colored python clan all lived on this star. Here at this moment, a group of beautiful female cultivators gathered in a gorgeous palace on the peak of the tallest mountain in the star. The magnificent palace that stood at the peak of the towering mountain was where the 4 desolate supremacy old monsters of the colored python clan discussed matters. As for their cave dwellings, they were scattered throughout the planet. After all, some of them were cultivating, while others were in seclusion. To avoid disturbing each other, it was impossible for them to live together. There were many figures in the palace, about 200 to 300 of them, and they were all universe supremacy of the starry sky-colored Python clan. Among them, there were about 40 almighty beings in the middle of the primordial void, and the rest were all universe supremacies. The 4 figures sitting in the palace were all primordial void supremacy. All the upper echelons of the colored Python clan in the main hall were female cultivators with graceful figures and gorgeous appearances. At a glance, it was as if one had entered a country of women, causing one's eyes to light up. Even the 4 desolate venerables from the colored Python clan sitting in the main hall had lived for countless years, but the female cultivators they transformed into were extremely young. Their waists were slender, and their temperaments and appearances were among the best. Ah! She was probably not too far off from the 7 great beauties of the primordial world, who were once the most beautiful cultivators in the primordial world. Yes, although all the female cultivators in the palace were beautiful, they were all gloomy, and they looked pitiful. Sisters, what do you think of the suggestion of the 4 desolate supremacy of the Shao Kong Forbidden Land? After pondering for a while, the red-dressed beauty, who was the strongest among the 4 desolate venerables, had already reached the 6th order desolate venerable realm. She was only 1 step away from reaching the 7th order desolate venerable realm. She looked at the other 3. After a short pause, she said, "That black-skinned boar monster has gone to the Shao Kong Forbidden Land. It seems that he is not ambitious. He is obviously trying to find out the truth of the Shao Kong Forbidden Land. The war in the Devil Antelope Forbidden Land has just been extinguished, and he suddenly made such a move. It seems that he is not easy to deal with. He is too decisive, and our Xia Hei's Forbidden Land will not be able to escape from his covetous eyes." Chapter 50-40. According to the news from the 4 old monsters of the Shao Kong Forbidden Land, the black-skinned boar monster has already gone to the Shao Kong Forbidden Land. It seems that this person's ambition is not enough. He is clearly trying to find out the truth of the Shao Kong Forbidden Land. The war in the Devil Antelope Forbidden Land has just been extinguished, and he suddenly made such a move. This person's character is definitely not ordinary. Our Xia Ai Forbidden Land will definitely not be able to escape his covetous eyes. As she turned to look at the other 3 people, the red-dressed beauty's face became more worried as she spoke. Omitted after a pause, a wry smile appeared on her face. She shook her head and sighed. Although our Xia Ai Forbidden Land and the Shao Kong Forbidden Land's overall strength are about the same, we are all delicate female cultivators after all. We give people the feeling that we are easier to bully than the Shao Kong Forbidden Land. So, if the black-skinned boar monster figures out the general situation of the 2 forbidden lands and prepares to attack, it will most likely choose our Xia Ai Forbidden Land first. If we ask for help from the Shao Kong Forbidden Land at that time, I'm afraid it will be too late. And we will also be in an extremely passive situation. So, we have to take the initiative before the black-skinned boar monster attacks our Xia Ai Forbidden Land. The 4 old guys of the Shao Kong Forbidden Land don't have good intentions. Their suggestion is for us to lure the black-skinned boar monster into the Xia Ai Star Vortex and activate the Xia Ai Illusory Formation to trap it forever. But if that's the case, wouldn't our Xia Ai Star Vortex be completely destroyed? When she spoke up to hear, the beautiful woman in a violet dress who possessed a cultivation that was merely inferior to the beautiful woman in a red dress frowned, and her voice revealed a wisp of unwillingness that was dense to the point of being impossible to disperse. The Sunglow Stellar Vortex is formed from the bloodline Sunglow energy emitted by the breathing of countless multicolored pythons in the forbidden area of Sunglow. It is the holy land of our colored python clan. Usually, when the colored pythons in the clan need to break through to a higher realm, they will enter the Xia Ai Star Vortex for seclusion and use the endless bloodline power of the Xia Ai Star Vortex to successfully break through. Although the power of the fog in the stellar vortex can form an illusory array, it can confine a true heavenly Tao realm expert, much less a peak desolate supremacy at the 9th step of perfection. As long as they haven't reached the mid-stages, they can be trapped in an illusory world forever. They will be in a daze, unable to escape. But in that case, a powerful enemy will be trapped in the vortex of stars. Once the illusory formation is activated, none of the clansmen of our colored python clan will be able to enter. In the future, no matter who it is, if they want to break through the bottleneck of a major realm, they will have to rely on luck and fortune. As such, as time goes by, the overall strength of our colored python clan will be affected. The consequences were obviously very serious, and it affected the future of the entire colored python race. It was a matter of great importance. The beautiful woman in the red dress had gathered all the higher-ups with cultivation levels above Universe Supreme to discuss this matter. As soon as the woman finished speaking, all the higher-ups of the colored python clan in the hall looked at each other and fell silent. The purple-robed woman was right. There was not the slightest element of exaggeration. This matter was indeed too important. It was indeed difficult to make a decision easily. However, the situation described by the woman in the red dress was serious, but it was also a fact that could not be ignored. It was obviously imminent. If there were no accidents, the 4 old guys in the Shao Kong Forbidden Land would soon arrive with that black-skinned boar monster. If they had not made a decision by then, it would be difficult to lure it out if they missed the best opportunity. Howl, friends of the Xia AI Forbidden Land, I am Pig Tyrant of the Magic Hall. I am here to visit you. Just as the higher-ups of the Starry Sky-colored python clan in the hall were hesitating, a high-pitched howl suddenly came from the edge of the Forbidden Land star zone. Then, a muffled voice of divine sense came. Although this person was very powerful, his voice of divine sense enveloped the entire Forbidden Land star zone. All the Starry Sky-colored pythons on countless abandoned stars could hear it clearly. Not only did this howl appear abruptly, but it also revealed an inexplicable sense of strangeness, as if it had just been injected with chicken blood, giving people a feeling of excessive excitement and excitement. Brain, as these thoughts flashed through their minds, the countless beautiful female cultivators on the abandoned stars in the Forbidden Land star zone turned pale. Some of the more timid ones had already turned pale, and even their bodies were trembling slightly. In fact, not to mention the beautiful female cultivators who were transformed from ordinary starry sky-colored pythons on countless abandoned stars, even the hundreds of higher-ups of the colored python clan in the clan hall on the towering peak of the giant star in the center of the Forbidden Land star zone trembled slightly at this moment. All of them changed their expressions. This black boar monster was too powerful. It was a peak desolate venerable at the great perfection of the 9th level, which was half a step into the way of heaven. With such a terrifying cultivation and strength, even if the 4 desolate venerables of the colored python clan on the high seats in the hall joined forces, they would definitely not be its match. Instead, they would provoke it. Thinking, when they witnessed this scene, the figures of the 400-plus higher-ups of the colored python clan in the hall shook violently once more, and their expressions were even more humiliated and furious. They gritted their teeth and clenched their fists tightly, and they seemed as if they would rather die than submit and fight desperately. This dark-skinned boar has really come. Judging from the excitement in its long howl, it seems like it has gone mad. This venerable's previous deduction is clearly wrong. With a gloomy expression, the beautiful woman in red immediately stood up and said through gritted teeth, "This guy is actually a dead boar. I'm afraid that if he attacks our Forbidden Land star zone, it won't be like how it was in the Devil Antelope Forbidden Land, where it will be a bloody massacre. This dead boar must be coveting our beauty. The countless colored pythons in our clan will become his. This is absolutely not allowed. It seems like we don't have a choice. In order to prevent countless clansmen from being enslaved by this black boar, the only choice is to find a way to lure it into the Starry Sky star vortex and then activate the Starry Sky illusory formation to trap it forever." At this point, the beautiful woman in red turned to look at all the higher-ups of the colored python clan in the hall. Seeing that no one had any objections, she heaved a sigh of relief and turned to look at the other 3 desolate venerables of the colored python clan. A determined expression appeared on her face as she continued, "At that time, one of the 4 of us will be responsible for luring it into the Starry Sky star vortex. This person will be chosen by that black boar himself. Whoever he is more interested in will be led into the Starry Sky star vortex. Whether or not we can successfully charge out before the illusory formation is activated will depend on our own luck. For the sake of the entire clan, even if we have to sacrifice ourselves." Chapter 5041. For the entire race, even if it's a sacrifice, it's fine. After saying this, the beautiful woman in the red dress had a resolute expression on her face. It was obvious that even she was mentally prepared to lead Old Pig Spirit into the astral vortex of multicolored clouds. The other party was a peak desolate supremacy at the 9th stage perfection realm, which was equivalent to a half-step heavenly Tao realm expert. Even with the woman's 6th stage desolate supremacy cultivation level, if she was in charge of luring him into the rosy dawn stellar vortex, she would have to stay by his side. Under such circumstances, under the premise of ensuring that the other party would not rush out of the stellar vortex, it was basically impossible for her to successfully rush out of the stellar vortex before the rosy dawn illusory array was fully activated. Also, in other words, this was equivalent to sacrificing herself. Furthermore, it was not just a simple sacrifice. Once the rosy dawn illusory array was activated, she would be trapped in the stellar vortex with that darn perverted pig. Facing a half-step heavenly Tao realm expert at the 9th stage perfection realm, she might not even be able to get what she wanted. That represented humiliation, but for the race, this was the only choice. As they looked at each other, the four-colored python race's desolate supremacies nodded silently. Their faces were filled with determination, and they were prepared to sacrifice themselves. Following that, the four of them soared into the sky at the same time and rushed out of the star, heading for the edge of the forbidden Rosy Dawn stellar domain. The Rosy Dawn stellar vortex was located in the deepest part of the forbidden stellar domain. And if they wanted to lure the darn black-skinned pig into the stellar vortex and activate the illusory array to seal him, they had to at least invite him into the stellar domain first. Then, they would cater to him, feigning civility, and slowly plotting. Here at that moment, at the edge of the forbidden Rosy Dawn stellar domain, there were 5 figures standing in the void, waiting. 5 these figures had all transformed into the appearance of survivors. Among the 4 elders, there was a burly, dark-faced man. They were Old Pig Spirit and company that had rushed over from the rosy void forbidden ground. The dark-faced man was Old Pig Spirit, and the 4 elders were the 4 desolate supremacies of the rosy void forbidden ground. Along the way, the 5 of them had some conversations and were now familiar with each other. However, although the Old Pig Spirit was a peak desolate venerable at the 9th rank great perfection and a powerful half-step heavenly way. However, the forbidden area of rosy mist was filled with delicate and beautiful female cultivators, so he really couldn't be too rash. If he were to charge indirectly, then it would truly be too disrespectful. Thus, after he arrived here, he waited silently at the edge of the star field. In fact, the Old Pig Spirit came to the forbidden land of sunrise this time with the intention of winning the beauty's heart, but he didn't intend to use force at all. The mission that Yi Xian gave him was to lead the Magic Hall army into the primordial chaos and seize a suitable forbidden area on the right bank of the Milky Way as a shelter for the Magic Hall army. He had completed this mission, and he did not know what had happened on the right bank of the Milky Way. The giant void tortoise that was stronger than him had disappeared, and powerful old monsters like Desolate Zune were guarding the most powerful forbidden lands and most powerful star regions. Under such circumstances, the Old Pig Spirit clearly did not intend to continue making a fuss. He was afraid. After all, with the demonic pig's 9 transformations bloodline divine ability state, he was now a peak desolate supremacy at the great perfection of rank 9, which was equivalent to a half-step heavenly Tao realm expert. However, in other words, even in the primordial chaos, he could go anywhere. But now, he still had the entire Magic Hall's 6 legions by his side. If he were to continue killing and making a fuss, and if he were to incur the wrath of the masses on the right bank of the Milky Way, a large number of desolate supremacies from the various forbidden lands and star regions would join forces to suppress him. With just him, the 7 beautiful cultivators, and the black-robed desolate supremacy, it would be a huge mess if they were unable to withstand it. Class at that time, he would not even be able to answer to Yi Xian. This time, the reason why the Old Pig Spirit left the forbidden land of rosy mist immediately after settling everything in the forbidden land of demonic antelope was to go to the rosy mist forbidden land, and then take advantage of the situation to come to the forbidden land of sunrise under the invitation of the 4 desolate supremacies of the rosy mist forbidden land. His only purpose was to get close to the higher-ups of the 2 neighboring forbidden lands, and to hear them acknowledge the existence of the Magic Hall. He did not expect that the other party would misunderstand his intentions, and had secretly made arrangements to lure him into the starry mist vortex deep in the forbidden land of sunrise, to open the illusion array and trap him. Of course, since the forbidden land of sunrise was full of beautiful female cultivators transformed by the starry sky-colored python, then he could take advantage of this opportunity to bring some of the female cultivators back and settle them in the newly refined one carriage in the future. The old pig had this idea, but he did not intend to use force at all. On one hand, he did not intend to cause any more trouble and fall out with the higher-ups of the forbidden land of sunrise. From then on, the magic hall would be safe and sound, and it would have a huge impact on the future. On the other hand, it was because he was still very confident in himself. Even Yi Xian, who turned into an ugly big monkey, could make the 7 beautiful cultivators fall in love with him. He was so mighty, how could no female cultivator like him? These thoughts flashed through the old pig's mind, and the smile on the old pig's face became more brilliant. His chest, which was originally high, was puffed forward again. He felt that he was extraordinary, but he did not know that his fat body, dark skin, and proud expression on his face, not to mention the female cultivators in the forbidden land of sunrise who liked beautiful things, even the 4 desolate venerable old monsters who came here with him were already twitching their mouths. They would vomit if they forced themselves to look at him. Whoosh! Whoosh whoosh whoosh. After waiting for a while, a sharp sound suddenly came from the depths of the star field in front of him. Looking around, 4 figures were coming together, 1 in front and 3 behind. These 4 people were the strongest in the entire forbidden land of Xia Haze. They were also the 4 desolate venerables of the starry sky-colored python clan. Now, they had all transformed into young and beautiful women. Not only were their appearances excellent, but their figures were also extremely graceful. Their waists were so small that they could be held with one's hand. This beautiful woman, with such a stunning beauty and such a beautiful figure, even if the real masters of the remnant people knew that they were all transformed from starry sky-colored pythons, they would not be able to control themselves when they suddenly saw them. At this time, seeing the arrival of the 4 desolate venerable old monsters of the starry sky-colored python clan, the 4 old monsters of the forbidden land of Xiao Kong, who had always been very confident about their appearances and figures, immediately showed a proud smile on their faces. Next, after subconsciously exchanging glances with each other, the 4 old men turned to look at the old pig spirit at the same time. In their opinion, the old pig spirit was extremely lecherous, so when he suddenly saw such a beautiful and delicate young female cultivator, his mouth was probably dripping with saliva. However, the truth shocked them greatly. The old pig did open his mouth wide, but no saliva flowed out. Instead, his eyes widened, and he looked like he had seen a ghost. After being stunned for 2 seconds, his face darkened, and he muttered involuntarily, "She is too thin, isn't she? She is so ugly that she can fly out of the sky. This pig is so disappointed." Chapter 50-42. Isn't this too thin? It's so ugly that it rushes out of the sky. This pig is so disappointed. Seeing the arrival of the 4 desolate elders from the forbidden land, the old pig spirit immediately opened his mouth wide, but no saliva flowed out. While his eyes were wide open, and his expression was like he had seen a ghost. After being stunned for 2 seconds, his face sank, and he muttered in an incomparably speechless voice, "The 4 desolate Zuns from the forbidden land of Rosy Dawn were indeed not in line with his standards of beauty. In fact, even the 7 beautiful cultivators of the untainted land such as Shi Zhu and Hanba, as well as the 3 girls, Purplish Warbler, Duan Xiaocha, and Zhao Qianru, were the same. Old, the pig spirit liked plump beauties, preferably a fat sow with white skin. Of course, if he wanted to become a remnant instead of a sow, although it was a little regretful, as long as he could be a little chubbier, in fact, it was barely acceptable. At least, it should be no problem to use him as a maid to show off. However, these 4 desolate supremacies from the forbidden land of sunrise were too ridiculous. Not only were they ugly, but they were also skinny to this extent. One look and one could tell that they were malnourished. It was clear that they had not fully grown before they ran out. The thought of "not yet fully grown" popped up in his mind. Based on this point alone, it could be seen how dissatisfied the old pig spirit was at the moment. At this moment, whether it was the 4 old guys from the forbidden land or the 4 beautiful desolate elders from the forbidden land in front of them, they all opened their mouths wide at the same time. They stared at the old pig spirit in a daze, wondering if they had heard wrongly just now. Too thin? Ugly, rushing out of the sky? Brain, these thoughts flashed through their minds, and the 8 people only felt a roar in their minds. They were almost knocked to the ground by the thunder, especially the 4 beautiful desolate elders from the forbidden land in front of them. They were so angry that their noses were crooked. Silver, the powerful figures of the remote antiquity and the supreme masters of the remote antiquity in the forbidden land of the right bank of the river, whether it was the ferocious beasts of the stars or the remnant experts, which one of them was not secretly coveting their beauty? The reputation of the 4 beauties of the right bank wasn't something that could be casually called out. It was obvious to all that they were popular. Live after such a long time, this was the first time they had heard someone use the word ugly to describe them. Moreover, it was so ugly that it was out of this world. Was there still any law in this world? It was simply intolerable. On the other side, the 4 old guys from the Shao Kong forbidden land were also shocked. On the way here, they thought of all kinds of possibilities, but they never thought that this lecherous black-skinned old pig, after seeing the 4 Huang Zun old monsters of the right bank of the forbidden land, would actually describe them as ugly to the sky. It was only at this moment that they suddenly realized a fact that had been overlooked, and that was this fellow's bloodline. It was a pig. In the eyes of a pig, a so-called beauty was naturally a white and fat female pig. Even if it wasn't a pig beast, at least it was whiter and fatter. The 4 beautiful desolate venerables in the forbidden land of mist were white enough, but their figures were not fat at all. Each of them were like skinny spirits. How could they enter the eyes of a pig? A miscalculation. Dang, it was really a miscalculation, almost spoiling the big plan. As these thoughts flashed through their minds, the 4 old guys immediately exchanged glances again. Then, their faces were full of smiles, looking at the old pig spirit. They immediately remedied the situation and patiently guided it. I'm afraid fellow pig tyrant has misunderstood a little. It's too early to say that you're disappointed. Yes, the 4 friends of the Xia Hei's forbidden land have always been in seclusion, so their figures are slim. However, in the Xia Hei's forbidden land, there are still many plump and beautiful female cultivators. They are all white and fat. Isn't that so? Fat and cute. If this old man didn't guess wrongly, fellow Taoist pig tyrant should like this type, right? Ha ha ha, great minds think alike. I'm the same. I don't like those who are too slim. They don't have the feeling of being chubby. It's better to have some fat. The more fat, the more beautiful. These words made the 4 old guys almost vomit in order to please the old pig spirit. Fortunately, their efforts were not in vain. Hearing their words, the expression on the old pig spirit's face eased a lot. Even his originally dim eyes once again burst forth with the light of hope. Look! This guy really likes the fat type. He really has the taste of a pig. This is too heavy, they secretly criticized in their hearts. The 4 old guys' hearts that were in their throats slowly settled down. As they spoke, they looked at the 4 beautiful desolate venerables of the Xia Hei's forbidden land who were not far away in the void. Although they did not speak, on one hand, it was because they had been neighbors for many years and were already very familiar with each other. On the other hand, it was because they had secretly sent a message just now. Therefore, even if it was just a simple exchange of glances, the 4 beautiful desolate venerables of the Xia Hei's forbidden land still instantly understood what they meant. At this moment, after the anger in their hearts gradually subsided, their hearts that were in their throats also fell back to their chests. Since there was a problem with this damn black pig's aesthetic standards, and it was a major problem, then at least they and the colored python clan in the forbidden land could be saved. Unexpectedly, all the colored pythons were the same as them. Their waists could only be grasped with one hand, as if they would be broken by the wind at any time. This old pig spirit obviously did not like this type, and he was extremely disgusted. In his eyes, they were so ugly that they could rush out of the sky. Although there was no need to worry about the safety of their clansmen in this regard, there was no doubt about the black-skinned pig spirit's ferocity and ruthlessness. This had been clearly stated before. The entire demon antelope forbidden land was the best example, a lesson to be learned. So therefore, since today's matter had developed to such an extent, it was naturally impossible to stop here. No matter what, they had to take advantage of this opportunity to lure the other party into the Xia Hei's star vortex and activate the illusion array to trap them. Brain as these thoughts flashed through their minds, the four beautiful desolate venerables immediately laughed, and continued to speak in agreement, so its fellow Taoist pig tyrant. I'm sorry for not going out to meet you. I'm really rude. Coincidentally, I have a sister in the Xia Hei's forbidden land who is at the great perfection of the 9th rank. She is now in seclusion in the Xia Hei's star vortex, trying to break through to the desolate venerable realm. After she transformed into the appearance of a survivor, her weight was 888 kilograms. We four sisters added together and doubled to be comparable to her. If I'm not wrong, fellow Taoist pig tyrant should like this type. This is just right. I'll now lead fellow Taoist pig tyrant to the Xia Hei's star vortex. That sister in the clan will be out of seclusion soon. If she sees such a mighty and extraordinary fellow Taoist for the first time after she comes out of seclusion, she will be extremely happy. This is a good thing that should not be delayed. Fellow Taoist pig tyrant, why don't we go immediately? Chapter 5043. Misty Star Vortex? What's that? Upon hearing that there was actually a powerful figure in the misty forbidden land who was a half-step desolate supremacy at the peak of the 9th step, who weighed 888 pounds and was white and fat, old pig Spirit's eyes immediately lit up. No, however, he was not reckless. He still kept an eye on the misty star vortex that he had never heard of before. He immediately asked, from this point of view, it was clear that he was truly moved by this beautiful, white, and plump female cultivator who weighed 888 kilograms. On the one hand, it was really rare to meet such a fat female cultivator. On the other hand, her cultivation level was very compatible with him. If it would be even better if he successfully broke through this time and stepped into the supreme desolate supremacy realm. At that time, he would be a peak desolate supremacy at the peak of the 9th step, a half-step heavenly Tao realm existence. With a white and fat beautiful female cultivator who weighed 888 pounds serving him, just based on this point, his power would not be weaker than Yi Xian. Didn't the 7 beautiful female cultivators around him just step into the first step desolate supremacy realm? That is, even if this beautiful female cultivator who he had never met did not successfully break through this time and was still a powerful figure at the peak of the 9th step, which was a half-step desolate supremacy, it would be fine. In the future, with a little help from him, a successful breakthrough would be a sure thing. Who knows, the other party might be more grateful because of this and be more loyal to him. As these thoughts flashed through his mind, old pig Spirit could be said to be deliberately moving. Finally, there was a hint of drool at the corner of his mouth. When this scene fell into the eyes of the 4 beautiful desolate supremacies of the misty forbidden land, it immediately made them happy. After exchanging glances again, the 4 of them continued to speak. In order to dispel old pig Spirit's last bit of doubt, they patiently explained, fellow Taoist tyrant pig, I'm sure you know that when my colored python clan breathes in and out in the void, there will always be a 7-colored light. It's like a dense fog, and it's very beautiful. The name of the forbidden area is also because of this. That multicolored stellar vortex was formed from the multicolored pythons of my multicolored fog forbidden land's multicolored fog bloodline multicolored fog energy, accumulating for countless years. It is the holy land of our colored python clan. Usually, when the colored pythons of our clan need to break through to a higher realm, they will enter the vortex of stars and enter seclusion. With the help of the endless mist and bloodline power, they will successfully break through. Otherwise, breaking through from 9th rank great perfection to 1st rank desolate supremacy is not something that can be done so easily. That plump sister of mine is also due to the help of the rosy cloud star vortex. This little girl is certain that she will come out in the next 2 days. After all, he has been in seclusion for a year. Hearing this, old pig Spirit was immediately relieved. Since the rosy stellar vortex was the sacred grounds of the starry sky python clan, then only the experts of the clan were allowed to enter it when they were breaking through a realm. This obviously showed that it was an extremely important place of resources. Since that was the case, there naturally wouldn't be any danger inside. Furthermore, with his peak desolate supremacy cultivation at the 9th step perfection realm, so what if a half-step heavenly Tao realm expert was a little dangerous? Then, this plump fellow Taoist of the colored python clan was only at the peak of the 9th stage of the mighty figure realm, but she was safe and sound inside. Why should he be worried? As the dignified pig tyrant of the magic hall, he was so mighty and extraordinary. Even the 8 desolate supremacies of the Seacombe Forbidden Land and the Rosy Clouds Forbidden Land, who met for the first time, deliberately flattered him and tried to matchmake him. If he was too cautious and fell into their eyes, they would mistakenly think that he was timid. Wouldn't that be too embarrassing? First thinking of this, old pig spirit immediately made a decision. He puffed up his chest, waved his big hand, and said in a muffled voice, "Plump 888? This pig is really looking forward to it. Since the 8 of you are so kind, this pig will be impolite to refuse. What are you waiting for? Just lead the way in front." The 8 old guys were waiting for this sentence. Hearing this, they were overjoyed and didn't say anything else. Their faces were full of smiles. Immediately, the 4 beautiful desolate supremacies of the Rosy Clouds Forbidden Land led the way in front, while the 4 old guys from the Seacombe Forbidden Land accompanied old pig spirit behind. A group of people rose into the sky, entered the Rosy Clouds Forbidden Land from the edge, and shot towards the deepest part of the star field, rosy clouds, in the universe void deep in the Rosy Clouds Forbidden Land. Whoosh! Whoosh whoosh whoosh, a weak sound of breaking through the air sounded. 9 people, 4 in front and 5 behind, shot out from the edge of the star field. It was old pig spirit and his group. After entering the Forbidden Land star field, old pig spirit's divine scent spread out and swept across the stars along the way, seeing countless female cultivators. Unfortunately, although these female cultivators had fair skin, their bodies were too thin. They were like ribs, which didn't satisfy his appetite. Under such circumstances, his expectation for the plump female cultivator he had never met was naturally stronger. 9 They were all desolate supremacies. Their speed was originally very fast. After galloping all the way, they soon arrived at the depths of the Rosy Clouds Forbidden Land. At this time, looking up, 10 billion miles away in the void ahead, a colorful star vortex came into view. This star vortex was very beautiful. From the outside, the star vortex's overall diameter was about 100 million miles. However, this kind of star vortex must have another world inside. Therefore, if there were no accidents, the void inside the star vortex was at least 100 billion miles wide, such a beautiful star vortex, and it was the holy land of the colorful python clan. Naturally there wouldn't be any danger. In fact, even if there was, old pig spirit wouldn't care at this moment. He was very confident in his cultivation strength. What's more, he had never thought that what he had experienced just now was just a pig trap set by the 8 desolate Zune old monsters of the Shia Forbidden Land and the Seacombe Forbidden Land. Moreover, the so-called beautiful female cultivator who was as fat as a pig did not exist at all, at this place. They were only 10 billion miles away from the colorful star vortex ahead. All 9 of them were desolate supremacies, and they could reach it in a moment. However, the 4 beautiful desolate supremacies of the Rosy Clouds Forbidden Land who were leading the way in front stopped at the same time. Old pig spirit and the 4 old guys of the Rosy Clouds Forbidden Land who were following behind also stopped abruptly. Fellow Taoist pig tyrant, in front of us is the holy land of the colorful python clan, the Rosy Cloud Star Vortex. That girl, Fatty, should be able to smoothly break through tomorrow or the day after tomorrow and come out of seclusion. This is already an extremely joyous matter. If you add on the fact that she saw such a mighty and extraordinary fellow Taoist pig tyrant right after coming out of seclusion, she would be secretly delighted. This is simply a double blessing. At this time, it's naturally inconvenient for us to be present. That girl Fatty has never had a Taoist companion. It's not an exaggeration to say that she's still in a boudoir. She will be shy. Therefore, we can't accompany you into the star vortex, but we will wait outside the star vortex. Here, we congratulate you in advance for successfully getting the beauty. M.